two people cannot enter the whirlpool at the same time. Gong Kaiwei steered her flying sword and glanced at Su Xing when they were above the whirlpool. Her meaning was obvious. Su Xing let go and threw himself off. With his star energy protecting his body, he jumped into the whirlpool. He did not have a chance to get a clear look before his entire world spun round and round. His eyes were dazzled, and he cleanly disappeared just like the rest of the other star cultivators. The last thing he heard was Gong Kaiwei saying, "Remember, meet at the Flower Dragon Pond." It was as if he had returned to his first time sitting in the anti-centrifugal force simulator for his aviation training, only the centrifugal force here was several times more powerful. Su Xing nearly vomited, but taking a look, his entire surrounding scenery had already completely changed. He was in a rotting, dark blue cave, the entire ground covered with river water that reached up to his ankles. The cave was several tens of meters high, and hanging from it was every sort of conical stalactite. The entire place had uneven faults and platforms. Jagged rocks, exotic flowers and plants could be seen everywhere, and the air was thick with a fetid, fishy smell. So this was the Flower Dragon Cave? Facing this bizarre environment, a distrusting Su Xing vigilantly scanned the entire area once with his divine intent in order to avoid happening upon a star cultivator in the surroundings. After all, this rocky cavern's greatest foes were the star cultivators harboring sinister thoughts of making easy money. Fortunately, the dozens of meters around him were peaceful. Still, Su Xing was alert of his surroundings as he took out Silver Blade with one hand and sized up all of his own surroundings. He recalled in his mind the description regarding Flower Dragon Cave he received before arriving here. The Flower Dragon Pond Gong Kaiwei mentioned was a lake at the center of the Flower Dragon Cave. The distance from his current position was several tens of li, at the minimum. The Nebula late-stage cultivators who entered that understood Flower Dragon Cave were several dozen in number, and Su Xing did not dare to be the slightest bit careless. Trekking at a careful pace, he used the rocks as cover. He advanced slowly, possessing the rich experience of a trained soldier. Hiding his figure was very simple, but the problem was that a cultivator's divine intent was not easily countered. The concealing star technique, he learned that hid nebula stage cultivators might as well be considered sloppy. He crossed several hundred meters like this, when very gradually, Su Xing started to hear a cacophony of voices coming through from somewhere. Miserable screams, loud shouts, and pleas for mercy began to increase in number. These star cultivators that killed and plundered really did not dare to delay even a moment. Spelunking for a long while, Su Xing suddenly saw before him a blue flower floating above the surface of a lake. The flower bud was about the size of his palm, and the petals strangely appeared to be wave-shaped, folded layer upon layer. Its stamen revealed sparks of blue electricity as it lazily swayed in the wind. Thunder water flower? Su Xing stared blankly. The star cultivators that came to Flower Dragon Cave to take the legendary flower water divine thunder were actually here to take several of these bizarre water thunder propagating flowers. The more of these thunder water flowers that were gathered, the more pure and powerful a flower water thunder could be refined, so frankly speaking, star cultivators coming to the Flower Dragon Cave were here to see who could pluck the most of these thunder water flowers. Of course, even if one thunder water flower could not be refined into flower water divine thunder, using it for other artifacts and talismans as materials was also incomparably precious. As a result, every time the Flower Dragon Cave opened, there were countless star cultivator casualties, but the many greedy star cultivators only grew in number. Unexpectedly encountering this item, Su Xing did not let it go to his head at all. Rather, he wrinkled his brow and hid to the side. The gloomy lightning released by the thunder water flower very quickly drew in another star cultivator. Seeing other people were absent from his surroundings, the other party did not hesitate. Forming a hand seal, a throwing knife shot towards the thunder water flower's stem. When it neared, the thunder water flower's lightning discharged, shooting down the small knife. The star cultivator grit his teeth and cast upon himself a protection technique. He rapidly approached it, one hand even clutching a water escape talisman, prepared to flee at the sign of an abnormality. He seemed to be even more careful than Su Xing. It was just that, in terms of greed, he also surpassed Su Xing, and this was doomed to lead to tragedy. Seeing the thunder water flower before his eyes, the star cultivator's face had only just become delighted when suddenly, something strange abruptly appeared. That thunder water flower's peaceful lightning seemed to bare its fierce fangs as it hacked towards the star cultivator. How could the star cultivator have imagined that this thunder water flower would suddenly rise in revolt? He did not have any sort of reaction at all when he was hit, not even letting loose a scream as his entire body was paralyzed. And this was followed by an inconceivable scene before his eyes. SFX, water rushing and bubbling loudly. That thunder water flower suddenly elevated as a sea serpent several dozen meters long raised its head from within the lake. Its entire body was colored like the water, smooth without scales, its narrow snake pupils a dark blue. Sharp and long poisonous fangs grew from its upper jaw, and that graceful thunder water flower was a mimic that was actually its snake crown. This wasn't a thunder water flower at all. It was clearly an even higher quality material for the blooming water divine thunder, flower python thunder horn. The star cultivator had reached the extreme point of shock. The sea serpent opened its ferocious mouth, and swallowed whole the star cultivator, alive, in a single bite. Then the snake focused its eyes on its surroundings, releasing a cold glint, and it continued to be like a first-rate hunter as it dived back into the water. Its skin and the water mixed into singular whole such that the naked eye had absolutely no way of perceiving it. That flower python thunder horn perfectly imitating the thunder water flower floated above the lake's surface, just as elegant and peaceful as before, almost as if nothing had happened at all. Su Xing's lungs were suffocating. Blooming water demon python. 2. Ever since he encountered Golden Flower Beast, 3. Su Xing felt the worldview of Liangshan continent was far more bizarre than he had imagined, and then he had the opportunity to cram on Liangshan continent's odd fauna. Liangshan continent's birds and animals were divided into fierce, demon, fine, fearful, spirit, deity and holy, these 7 types. Fierce beasts posed a danger only to the common folk, whereas deity and holy beasts practically existed only within legends and folklore. In contrast, demon beasts and the like rampaged all over the land, and they were absolutely terrifying existences. Seeing this blooming water demon python's almost human intellect, opposing it required using a rather costly technique. Su Xing thought for a bit and still decided to not face this danger since he did not require the thunder water flower anyways. The right course of action was to regroup as quickly as possible with Gong Kaiwei, but something bad was about to happen. He had barely even took a few steps to leave when he heard behind him once more the sounds of several men and women cultivators' amazed voices. Ah, a thunder water flower. What good fortune. Su Xing shook his head, and as expected, terrified screams rang out behind him once again. The shrieks grew louder and louder, closer and closer. Su Xing turned his head to quietly curse at them, but he saw a cultivator flying rapidly towards him in escape, an imposing and horrifying blooming water thunder python following close behind, its mouth wide open. 5. That thunder water flower snake flower crown flashed an explosion of light. The cultivator hastily offered a sacrifice. Several flying daggers spun towards it, and a lightning flash shot out from the snake flower crown of the blooming water thunder python. The spiritual powers of those artifacts was immediately destroyed. One after another they fell, and the cultivator knew at a glance that he was not a match, immediately using his water escape talisman. Before he knew it, the blooming water thunder python suddenly attacked, its hunting movements so swift that there was practically no time to even blink. The cultivator issued a terrified scream as he was swallowed alive by the blooming water thunder python. Su Xing cursed, for the time required to use the water escape talisman was several seconds. This blooming water thunder python did not need even a second to capture its prey, its speed was far too fast. Hiss! The blooming water thunder python's dark blue snake pupils stared at Su Xing like the monster it was, for it was at least several dozen meters long, and then, bang! The blooming water python launched a relentless thunderbolt, and Su Xing hastily stepped to the side, leaning against a stalactite. He originally wanted to open fire, but the blooming water python's counterattack was extremely quick, not giving Su Xing a chance to open fire at all. The demon python apparently knew that a star cultivator's weakness was in close quarters, trying in vain again and again to swallow Su Xing. It opened its ferocious mouth wide, a fishy stench spewing out as if it were a storm. Su Xing dodged left and right, already quietly approaching in the blink of an eye. He raised the bloodthirsty weapon Silver Blade that was in his hands, ruthlessly shooting at the blooming water python's head. Su Xing had more or less made out that the Thunder Water Flower Snake Crown, 6, was this blooming water python's greatest weapon, so he immediately needed to pluck that blooming water python's snake crown. This weapon was definitely more deadly than its venomous fangs. Once this flower snake crown fell, the threat the blooming water python posed would drastically decrease. This had far more effect than attacking anywhere else on the blooming water python. Soldiers paid close attention to single-strike kills, even if the Air Force had stringent demands for accuracy. It was just that this demon python's head was not so easy to deal with. Its fierce head rotated 180 degrees, its glittering demonic snake pupils were glued on Su Xing. The flower sitting atop its head lightly flashed by, and a powerful lightning bolt appeared without warning, in an instant exploding towards Su Xing. Su Xing raised his arm to defend. His body was sent flying after receiving the strike, knocking a row of stalactites into the water. His whole body completely lost feeling, for he was paralyzed by thunder and lightning. The blooming water thunder python quickly slithered over. Its senses within the rocky cavern were matchless, for when it saw that its opponent was paralyzed, it opened its mouth wide without the slightest hesitation. Su Xing gave a wry laugh, and suddenly, just as the blooming water python descended upon him, his body that would not budge abruptly rolled, avoiding the blooming water python's bite. Silver Blade brought with it a sharp hiss and a fierce wind, resolutely cutting into the blooming water python's back. It kept digging deeper, a cold, silver light tearing open nearly half its body. SFX, boom! The blooming water python had a chance meeting with lightning, its body shaking fiercely, raising its head as it hissed miserably. It whipped its snake tail heavily at Su Xing. Looking down on this demon python's might, the wind from raising its tail alone was able to blow Su Xing away. Taking advantage of this moment, the blooming water python suddenly ascended, binding Su Xing closely together like a rope. Its open mouth leaked malevolence, an ugly orifice. It hissed as it gnashed its teeth, seemingly declaring that it was pleased with itself, wishing to chew apart this enemy that could break free of its water thunder paralysis. Chew on this, careful you don't burn yourself. Su Xing raised his gun, pulling the trigger. A powerful recoil that even shook Su Xing blasted, and the thunder fire bullet exited the barrel. The projectile's speed combined with the addition of nebula stage star energy made it ascend another level. The blooming water python screeched in terror, its upper jaw bursting and spilling out a luminous fireball, its fresh blood spraying across the rocky cave's river. Su Xing even fired twice, and the blooming water python's upper jaw fangs directly exploded. With 3 rounds spent, the thunder fire bullets that remained were only 21. Su Xing did not want to waste any more ammunition and fiercely pounced on the serpent. Silver Blade's keen edge was prepared to strike while the iron was hot, ready to give this snake a few more cuts. The blooming water python had guessed wrongly Su Xing's fighting strength. It could never have predicted that the Su Xing close behind it possessed this sort of terrifying artifact. Its thunder water flower snake crown again issued more lightning. Su Xing easily dodged, letting the blade edge rend the blooming water python's flesh. As the next cut came, the blooming water python knew it was in danger. It saw that it was in an unfavorable situation and immediately rose up into the air, fleeing away, pulling a distance away from Su Xing, where escape was certain. It raised its body straight up and wrapped around a stalactite, a devil and monster. Su Xing missed a chance to kill this blooming water python, and in his heart, he could not help but feel a bit of pity. However, this python had sustained injuries, so its strength was heavily reduced. If he wanted to behead it, even this would not be an impossible task. Without hesitation, the tips of his toes dipped onto the water, splashing it everywhere, and Su Xing also rose high up in the air, rushing once more towards the blooming water python. The blooming water python stared unwaveringly at Su Xing, its dark blue snake pupils like an iridescent cold light in the middle of night. Its huge, satiny body swayed from time to time, carrying with it a whistling gale. Its back had an enormous wound, as if some kind of great power fiercely ripped it open. Blood poured out from the wound in torrents, dripping over the ground, each drop assembling with others into bloody puddles. The blooming water python opened its mouth wide, bringing paralytic saliva that slowly oozed out. Its rage was bottomless, its heart absolutely filled with resentment. It was this strong and strangely scented star cultivator in front of it that gave it such a heavy strike, gave it such an immense wound, dissipating its strength. In its capacity as Flower Dragon Cave's most frightening existence, this was absolutely a disgrace. Rapidly flicking its snake tongue, the blooming water python could only but wish it was able to slowly chew apart this human that was a greater evildoer than it, swallowing him into its stomach. Watching Su Xing rush in front of it, the blooming water python abruptly turned its body slightly, its immense snake tail hacking downwards. Su Xing only heard a whistling sound, and a wailing gale was stirred up. He held fast, and when the ray of light above him dimmed, a mad and fierce power, almost like a mountain, was pressing down on him, pushed towards him. Su Xing immediately brought his body down, and then he dodged towards his left. With a mighty boom, the blooming water python's tail swept from his side, striking heavily upon the water. The moment its attack failed to connect, the blooming water python did not give Su Xing any chance to catch his breath. It immediately started to advance to its second rippling attack. It opened wide its mouth, still sputtering blood, sending forth 10 great bolts of lightning from its venomous fangs and shooting them out of its snake crown. They were like smaller pythons, hissing through the air and bearing fangs towards Su Xing, a power most astonishing. Perfect. Su Xing coldly smiled. His left hand formed a hand seal, and the Thunder Cry sword flew out from within his astral bag. After entering Nebula stage, Su Xing could truly use this Thunder Cry sword. Glimpsing the thunder charm along its blade, lightning collected together, and the lightning shooting towards Su Xing was all stopped by his Thunder Cry sword. The blooming water python's vitality had sustained crippling damage, and the power of the water thunder it spat up was also in decline. After the attack was dissolved by the Thunder Cry sword, Su Xing said, "Quick." The Thunder Cry sword emitted an air-shattering noise. It skewered the blooming water python's upper jaw. Su Xing was not lenient, and urging on his star energy without any margin for error, the Thunder Cry sword's lightning immediately split open. This blooming water python finally sampled a taste of electrocution. Not letting it howl in grief for long, Su Xing rushed forward, appearing atop the blooming water python's head in the blink of an eye. The blooming water python's flower apparently was the final battle. Su Xing raised his gun and pressed it against the flower's stem. 7. SFX, bang. A sharp and clear penetrating sound. That thunder water flower snake crown was immediately uprooted. The blooming water python's anguished howls turned into whimpers as it fell into a pool of blood. Even though a hole had been punched through its brain, it still struggled upon its deathbed. Finally, its breath was completely severed by Su Xing's sword. Wiping away his sweat, Su Xing let out a breath of air. It seemed he really could not relax within this flower dragon cave. Not only were there star cultivators, but there were also these demon beasts. Su Xing examined the simple and elegant thunder water flower snake crown in his hand. The flashing lightning and thunder in the snake crown dripped into the Thunder Cry sword like water. Might as well take something like this, so that it doesn't seem like I came here for nothing. Su Xing thought to himself. It was hard to say if heaven knew whether what everything Gong Kai Wei said about a real blooming water divine thunder was true or not. The battle with the blooming water python produced a ruckus that could be said to be not very quiet. Several dozen star cultivators were already rushing towards here, so Su Xing stored the blooming water python's carcass inside his bag, immediately departing rapidly from this place. As Su Xing expected, he had not left for long when a group of cultivators adorned in white and blue robes rushed to the location. They happened to be Chen Zhonglin and the rest of the Blooming Water Sword sect disciples that he met at the restaurant. "Senior brother, this is a Blooming Water python." One of the sword sect disciples carried one of the python's scales and walked before Chen Zhonglin. The other disciples' complexions changed one after another. As disciples of the Blooming Water Sword sect, their understanding of the Flower Dragon Cave and the Blooming Water Divine Thunder far outmatched the rest of the scattered star cultivators. They were fully aware that the Flower Dragon Cave's true boss was that Blooming Water Python. The Blooming Water Python's Thunder Water Flower Snake Flower Crown was an item they were required to obtain. This sort of demonic beast's snake crown was not only rare, but it also held the most promise in refining a pure Blooming Water Divine Thunder. Now, the Blooming Water Python being killed was completely outside of their expectations. For a nebula stage cultivator to slay this sort of proud demonic beast without a surefire plan like they had, the cultivator would easily have then been swallowed whole by the incognito python. Senior brother Zonling, could it be said that the Heavenly River Sword School did this? The rest of the disciples deeply believed it to be so. The Heavenly River Sword School was the Blooming Water Sword sect's mortal enemy. Several of the Heavenly River disciples that entered the Flower Dragon Cave this time around were Nebula late stage, and using their Heavenly Water Sword's secret arts within the Flower Dragon Cave could be considered putting a fish back into water, very easy and natural. Whoever he is, he couldn't have gotten very far in such a short amount of time. Immediately give chase, for we must snatch back that python. Chen Zhonglin's expression went cold, when suddenly, he saw several star cultivators rushing over who had heard the commotion. Ah, it's the Blooming Water Sword sect. The star cultivators were scared stiff upon seeing the Blooming Water Sword sect. You're courting death. Chen Zhonglin raised a hand seal, the water within the rocky cave abruptly soared upwards, becoming a watery sword that penetrated through two star cultivators that had not the slightest guard raised against it. The last star cultivator remaining was shocked and hastily used his water escape talisman. With a bang, the water's surface rose, and he immediately left the Flower Dragon Cave. Tut, he ran. Chen Zhonglin spat, and walked with great strides before the dying star cultivators. Spare me, pay the price for your greed. Chen Zhonglin disdained them. The tranquil river waters turned into numerous sharp swords that suddenly pierced them and turned them into honeycomb. The number of Blooming Water Sword sect disciples did not change their expressions, praising, ever since you contracted with a star general, senior student Zhonglin's water turned to sword art has become stronger and stronger, the number one of our school. Stop with the rubbish. Chen Zhonglin thoroughly enjoyed this sort of praise. Smiling, he said, quickly find that dead python's star cultivator. You definitely cannot let him escape. By your will. Oblivious to the fact that he killed the Blooming Water Sword sect's most important Blooming Water Python, Su Xing at this moment stared blankly at the scene before his eyes. In this more than 200 square meter pool, there were the collapsed corpses of more than 10 cultivators scattered chaotically about. Su Xing checked and saw there were both male and female corpses, both elderly and young. Judging from the positions of their death as well as their facial expressions, these people did not go down swinging at each other. 2. On the contrary, these scattered star cultivators should have had deep knowledge of the Flower Dragon Cave's dangers that they would form a single, large group. But their deaths came extremely abruptly, for several of the star cultivators still maintained defensive stances, eyes opened wide. These star cultivators were even at the nebula stage, but in the blink of an eye, they were done in without retaliating in the slightest. Su Xing thought this was completely inconceivable. Could it be that the Flower Dragon Cave still held some terrifying demon beast? The astral bags and other items on these star cultivators had already been taken away, so clearly it was not a demon beast. Examining their wounds, a dense bloody hole ran through their craniums, but their shoulders had fatal wounds, so clearly it came from directly above. Su Xing took extreme caution, keeping alert of the rocky cave's ceiling. Suddenly, the sound of weak breathing drew Su Xing's attention. Following this sound, Su Xing found a woman hiding beneath a corpse. She looked to be around 20 years old, her hair disheveled, her face pale, and upon her shoulders flowed the same bloody holes. "I'm begging you, please don't kill me," the girl shouted, terrified. "I'm not going to kill you," Su Xing said softly. He retrieved a Return of Spring Foxglove Pill, 3, from his person. For a short time, it could staunch bleeding and numb pain, and it was Suan who specially refined it for him. After swallowing the Return of Spring pill, the girl's trembling body slowly calmed. "What happened here?" Su Xing helped her up. "It was the Blood Rain Pot." 5. Blood Rain Pot. Su Xing raised his eyebrows. From the girl's stammering, Su Xing was finally able to understand the whole sequence of events leading to this horrific scene. As Su Xing had thought, the scattered star cultivators indeed knew deeply the dangers of Flower Dragon Cave, and the dozens of people just joined one after another into a huge group to prepare a common front. After the Flower Dragon Cave was fished up, since they all had Nebula early-stage cultivation, they did not need to be afraid even in the case they ran into a Nebula late-stage cultivator. Their plan was indeed correct. When they entered the lake, among the star cultivators they got rid of very easily was a Nebula late-stage star cultivator, but then they discovered 2 thunder water flowers. As they had habitually done, several people stood guard and others went to pluck it when at this time, they encountered a cultivator from the Heavenly River Sword School. The opposition unexpectedly brought out the Galaxy Stage artifact, 6, Blood Rain Pot. Although it was only an early-stage artifact, it rapidly dispatched these Nebula early-stage cultivators with much to spare. The girl lived only because she had a protective talisman that saved her life. Unexpectedly, it's a Galaxy Stage artifact. Su Xing's tone was grave. At every level of star energy, star cultivators will use different artifacts, and every artifact stage was also divided into basic grade, intermediate grade, high grade and supreme grade, 7, just like how star energy was also divided into separate ranks. Whenever a star cultivator's cultivation reached the late stage, they were already able to use the next stage's basic grade artifacts. Regarding fighting a star cultivator in the same realm, using a next stage artifact in a battle can give an enormous advantage in battle strength to its user, thus it was not difficult to explain the lack of retaliation on the part of these Nebula late-stage cultivators. Su Xing looked at the girl. Taking out a water escape talisman, he gave it to her. "Take care of yourself." "Thank you," the girl was moved to tears. Most probably, she herself had not expected to run into a decent person. Because of a soldier's natural instincts, Su Xing without a doubt disdained killing someone this way. However, he had no way of knowing that this inadvertent rescue, someday, would bring up the famous, water illusion fairy. Of course, that is a story for another time. 8. Activating the water escape technique, the girl's figure immediately submerged into the water and disappeared from sight. A Galaxy Stage artifact. So there's even something like this, that I had to give it my all. Su Xing thought aloud. Of the people from the Heavenly River Sword School she spoke of, Su Xing immediately thought of that cultivator Wu he encountered at the restaurant. Connecting the dots with their grudge, there was a good chance that the Heavenly River Sword School wanted to seize the opportunity at Flower Dragon Cave to kill the Blooming Water Sword Sect Star Master. Thinking about it, Su Xing had nothing to do with this. It was better to discuss how to put down these 2 exceptional water-style sword schools. Just as he thought that, the sudden sound of water breaking erupted. Su Xing soared with a jump onto a piece of rock. As it turned out, he had just avoided several water swords. Ha, 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 I didn't expect to see a hero save the beauty. I never thought this Flower Dragon Cave would still have such an upright star cultivator. The sound of rough, but full-hearted laughing suddenly resounded. The figures of tens of star cultivators wearing flax-colored long gowns encircled Su Xing from his surroundings. Originally, I wanted to find that rat from the Blooming Water Sword Sect, but I didn't think I'd find such a wonderful play. Hero, are you ready to beat it? Su Xing quietly cursed his luck. What he really did not want to come had come anyways. The people who approached were, in fact, Heavenly River Sword School's star cultivators. So, What I really want to come has come. Atop the cliffs of the Heavenly River, Wu Xinjie, Lin Yingmei, and Zhu Sha were currently peacefully overlooking those whirlpools waiting for their own masters to appear. A beam of escape light descended before them, and yet another group of people blocked up the cliff's outlet from behind. Wu Xinjie saw the sword-manipulating star cultivator and clapped as she smiled. It seemed she was pleased that she had guessed correctly. The sword-manipulating star cultivators and the girls had crossed paths before, for it happened to be the one who called himself Yun Yuzi of Dry Tree Mountain. After finding out Gong Kaiwei and Su Xing's identities as star masters, Yun Yuzi came up with an audacious thought from the bottom of his heart. Star masters entering the Flower Dragon Cave had no way of bringing their star generals along because of the restriction. Since this was the case, this group of good-looking beauties would all be left outside, separated from their own contractors. Losing the presence of their contractors, the star generals somewhat visibly expressed the effect of that. This moment was a chance bestowed by heaven to easily kill these star generals. Compared with seizing something like the blooming water divine thunder, Yun Yuzi had far more interest in slaying star generals because in legend, those that killed a star general could obtain their star energy and could even enter Liangshan continent's most mysterious Maiden Mountain. Fellows, this place here has at least 2 star generals. Their contractors at this moment are inside Flower Dragon Cave. What are we even waiting for? This group of cultivators were all Nebula stage along with a few at Stardust stage. This Nebula late stage Yun Yuzi right here could be considered the one with the greatest strength. These cultivators were all scattered star cultivators. Scattered star cultivators' greatest trait was that they loved to seize every opportunity to advance their own cultivation. If they switched to doing things themselves, confronting the most mysterious, the most elegant and the most powerful star maidens from Liangshan continent legend, and at least 2 of them at that, it gave the scattered star cultivators the courage of 100 to consider this for just a moment. However, the 40, 50 star cultivators were baffled at the confidence that formed when they acted as a group. Jumping on the bandwagon always made people become blind and could turn into the start of a disaster. If you obediently turn over your star weapons, we could spare you. Yun Yuzi threatened. Wu Xinjie asked, are you a fool? You should have first pondered about why someone would be able to guess you would come but not leave. Yun Yuzi stared blankly. Because we were waiting for you all to visit and give your experience. Fellows, do not let them escape. The star cultivators chanted incantations, formed hand seals, intertwining their flights together. Little sister Zhu Sha. I'll turn this over to you. Wu Xinjie giggled and signaled Lin Yingmei with her eyes, jumping for the cliff edge. 2. You want to flee? Yun Yuzi controlled his sword and coldly smiled, his sword's light swirling. The leader star the resourceful strategist's expression was extremely stiff, not even looking at the 2 people running for the cliff edge as the several dozen star cultivators launched their assault. The star cultivators' attacks always used artifacts, and this was the biggest weakness when confronting the star maidens. When the 5 elements weather banner transformed, an array appeared, followed by Zhu Sha's figure completely disappearing into thin air. All 40, 50 star cultivators did not see how the girl vanished. I've received all of your experiences. A flat voice suddenly rang out from the sky. The star cultivators raised their heads and were shocked to see the star general was already above their heads. The 5 elements weather banner flew and spun rapidly, growing extremely large. A large array then trapped the star cultivators within. Zhu Sha then chanted an inaudible command. Then, a mountain appeared within the large array, a silver waterfall splashing, a gust suddenly kicking up, clouds and mist billowing over. The star cultivators hastily used defensive arts. It's the toppling river mountain array. 3. This isn't good, it's the leader star. How is that? The toppling river mountain array covering a radius of 100 meters gave rise to an unimaginable landscape. The great mountain collapsed, and the suspended waterfall rained down torrents, all a great turmoil. The toppling river mountain array was a very powerful array such that only exceptional cultivators could resist it. Let alone being an expert in arrays, the resourceful strategist Zhu Wu was Liangshan's number one, and accompanying behind the immortal hero Princess Gong Kaiwei allowed her to soar by leaps and bounds. After the sound of a mountain flowing into the sea finished resounding, when the five elements weather banner floated back and shrouded Zhu Sha's whole body, the giant array's interior was already devoid of life. More than 20 star cultivators were swiftly and neatly killed in a matter of seconds. The remaining half of the star cultivators were completely scared out of their wits. Zhu Sha landed on solid ground, her palm open, that expression still stiff like stone. She can only ambush with large arrays. Friends, don't give her a chance, kill her. A rich variety of artifacts fired one after another. Zhu Sha coldly scowled. Clenching her fist, the five elements weather banner disappeared, and when it reappeared, thereupon was another series of screams. Underscore, haha, where do you think you're running to? Only when Wu Xinjie and Lin Yingmei were already out of sight of the others entering a small path did Yun Yuzi block their way. He already determined that the star maidens before his eyes were incapable of any sort of fighting technique, otherwise they would not have fled. How could he have known that Wu Xinjie did this only to prevent Zhu Sha from seeing through Lin Yingmei's identity? You really are motivated to chase after death. Wu Xinjie felt sorry for him. Yun Yuzi spoke, go, not being too wordy, and a row of mother swords with child swords attached to the middle shot towards the two people. 5. The rows of swords became a spinning killing formation. Under his magic power, an ordinary defense would have no way of blocking. Lin Yingmei leaned over and dashed forward. The attacking mother and child swords suddenly were dispersed by a cold light from a wave of her hand. The girl's body movements were extremely swift that even Yun Yuzi's nebula late-stage divine intent could only barely hone in by a bit. If his cultivation was just even slightly lower, it was hard to say if this comeback could have been put down by him, and he reluctantly sacrificed his flying sword. He used it as a barrier. The sharp sound of a blow against it. An overwhelming power shook against him, numbing his hand. Yun Yuzi trained at Dry Tree Mountain for some time, learned many fighting arts, but the first time he connected with that attack he knew that if he was shook open, the girl's weapon would stab sharply into his chest. And there was another strike. Yun Yuzi's throat filled with blood. With a great shout, he fortified his fighting spirit. Several ice-cold chains flew out from within his astral bag and bound Lin Yingmei's hands and feet. It did not occur to Yun Yuzi that the second star general would unexpectedly have extraordinary power. Seeing that the beast-binding iron chain, 6, successfully caught the star maiden, he did not hesitate in the slightest to stamp his foot, using a magic called Dead Tree Thorn. 7. Magic. Wu Xinjie praised slightly. For a star cultivator, magic was even more important than artifacts. When using an artifact, if it was damaged or destroyed, then there would be a great loss in fighting potential, but mastery of magic arts could never be lost. Although its usage was not as convenient as an artifact, it still was a trump card that could not be lost. A rocky thorn suddenly appeared beneath Lin Yingmei's feet like a sharp razor. Taking advantage of the beast-binding iron chain that captured its target, then using Dead Tree Thorn to finish the kill, Yun Yuzi had lost track of the number of times he had used this combination. Just when he thought he could see the legendary Star Maiden be defeated by his attack, an unexpected scene unfolded before his eyes that shocked him. Lin Yingmei threw her entire body, and the beast-binding iron chains holding both her arms and legs were unexpectedly lifted by her might. The girl stood light as a feather on the tip of the thorn, and then she fiercely exerted her strength, making Yun Yuzi's body lose control of his center of gravity. The iron chains that flew out from his astral bag had instead become shackles that bound him. Lin Yingmei turned the tables and used the iron chains to drag Yun Yuzi into the air. An Arctic star spear flickered a cold light beneath the scorching sun. Clenching the spear with both hands, she raised it and cut open a half-moon. The iron chains clanged and were smashed to dust. A cold that chilled down into the bone passed through the half of his body that Yun Yuzi had severed by Lin Yingmei's spear. These days spent recuperating had restored Lin Yingmei's incomparably imposing bearing. Perhaps because of the side effects of signing a contract as well as the side effects of the Heavenly Cycle Northern Dipper Array, and also the battle strength she used to protect her master the next 2 times, Lin Yingmei deeply blamed herself. The actions she took this time showed no mercy, her offense moving smoothly. Yun Yuzi painfully raised himself. His near-nebula late-stage star energy's defense was broken and killed on the spot with barely any resistance. But even so, this was a disastrous injury such that he completely was unable to stand steadily. The Lin Yingmei standing atop the thorn looked coldly at him, her hand clenching her spear, her appearance imposing, almost like a deity descended. You are, the Arctic Star Spear's terror already made Yun Yuzi collapse. He hastily called on every artifact and talisman that he could and threw them out. Lin Yingmei leapt, her spear point drawing a frightening arc, splitting apart every single artifact and talisman. This time, Yun Yuzi had no way to defend. Just before he put a foot in his grave, he heard a declaration that he would never have believed in this lifetime. You face Lin Chong. Little sister Yingmei, you really are too soldierly. It's a pity young master Su Xing wasn't able to see. Wu Xinjie tone was envious. Lin Yingmei returned her spear and felt that her star energy was far more powerful than before. It seemed that Su Xing's entrance into the nebula stage was a great help to her, however, Lin Yingmei had no reason to be satisfied at all. She pursed her lips, this is too far from enough to protect the young master. Far away upon a cliff littered with dead bodies, Zhu Sha recalled her 5 elements weather banner as she stood beside the cliff edge, overlooking from the edge expressionlessly. 8, ____, and at this moment, Su Xing also was stuck in a situation he never wanted to happen. Could it be the Heavenly River Sword School just like safety in numbers? Su Xing calmed his mind. The more than 10 opposing nebula stage cultivators encircled him, and he was unable to relax within his heart. Besides these star cultivators, there were still 2 nebula late-stage existences. However, running away was not a difficult task at all. As long as he used the chaotic tail escape technique, he could easily break away from this bind. The only caveat was that the chaotic tail escape required he sustain an injury, causing Su Xing to be very hesitant. He definitely did not want to drag his injured body to go meet Gong Kaiwei. The speaking cultivator Wu sneered, your hero saving the beauty act just now was very interesting. Are you scared right now? Ha, I've never seen such an upstanding star cultivator. A Heavenly River Sword School disciple smiled. A female cultivator also at Nebula early stage grinned, both senior brothers, how about you let this junior play with him? This junior sister has never played with such an upright star cultivator. The rest of the disciples broke into raucous laughter. Fine, so as to avoid this small fry lamenting in the underworld that we, the Heavenly River Sword School, used many to take advantage of the few, junior sister, do not humiliate our teacher. Cultivator Wu roared with laughter. Junior sister, don't break him. Let me play with the upright star cultivator in a moment, too. The rest of the people jeered. In the eyes of the people of the Heavenly River Sword School, the currently Nebula early stage Su Xing was a dead man walking. They were even already preparing to eye an even more wonderful prize. An abrupt explosion suddenly jolted everyone present. All of the ridicule instantly ended. The center stage female cultivator's head had been blown open by a great, unsightly hole. Brain matter and blood splashed all over the surroundings such that it was even on several Heavenly River Sword School disciples' faces. 9. Everyone without exception was terrified. 10:1. As in the Star Maidens are about to farm them for EXP, right arrow curving left 2. Time to run away Smokey. Right arrow curving left 3. Right arrow curving left 4. Are you sure about that? Right arrow curving left 5. It's like those traps in the movies where blades are attached to a revolving stick, apparently. Right arrow curving left 6. Right arrow curving left 7. Right arrow curving left 8. She-it, right arrow curving left 9. Just like in Supernatural. High five with anyone who watches SPN. Right arrow curving left 10. And that was when they realized, they fucked up. What was that artifact? The Heavenly River Sword School disciples were shaken by this one attack from Su Xing. Nobody believed that under their encirclement Su Xing would unexpectedly suddenly rebel. Perhaps they all felt that kneeling and begging for forgiveness was his best way out that should have been. Kill him! Cultivator Wu yelled, furious. Numerous Heavenly River Sword School disciples returned to their senses from that daze. Shouting and moving as one, countless tens of water swords filled the sky, and everyone moved in formation to kill Su Xing. After he fired his first shot, Su Xing did not plan to waste any more time with these bastards, charging at the star cultivator with the weakest cultivation to break through the encirclement. The flying water swords behind him did not stop their deadly pursuit as Su Xing raised Silver Blade. The nebula cultivator that was at the same level as them being killed off so easily gave these cultivators a deep sense of dread. Suddenly seeing Su Xing aim that terrifying artifact at them, they subconsciously moved to the side in fright. They were so frightened that they even did not feel like putting up a defense, and this result was precisely why Su Xing had fired his first shot. From insufferable arrogance to instant death, this sharp contrast would certainly leave behind a strong impression on these star cultivators. Practically every person's reaction was to just evade. "You scoundrels, stop him!" Cultivator Wu shouted when he saw several junior disciples unexpectedly move away despite their superior numbers. By the time they reacted, Su Xing had already rushed away. This seemingly impenetrable encirclement had been ingeniously breached through by Su Xing such that Cultivator Wu stamped his foot in anger. He thinks he can run away. Another youth with nebula late-stage cultivation standing beside Cultivator Wu smiled coldly. The moment he activated his escape technique, the rocky cave's lake water split apart, and just like a flying dragon, he covered several hundred meters in the blink of an eye. Su Xing groaned. Forming a hand seal, the nebula intermediate-grade artifact Thunder Cry Sword manifested, and lightning shot towards the blue-clothed youth with a mighty roar. The blue-clothed youth put up a water barrier in front of him. His feet formed ripples upon it, and a flying sword clashed with the Thunder Cry Sword. His figure disappeared, and then he was before Su Xing in the blink of an eye. Su Xing could only discharge a thunder fire bullet. The flame and thunderclap that left the barrel resounded distantly throughout the flower dragon cave. A petty trick. The already prepared blue-clothed youth smiled coldly. A magic power violently fired towards the incoming projectile and destroyed it in an explosion, and as he curled his 5 fingers, the water barrier protecting him turned into several water spears that thrust towards Su Xing. The results of sparring with Lin Chong revealed themselves. Such close and sudden thrusts were easily dodged by Su Xing, but the blue-clothed youth had also already anticipated this. Opening his mouth, he spouted several dozen transparent water droplets. This happened to the Heavenly River Sword School's special technique, rock-piercing water droplets, and spitting out more than a dozen droplets was not something an ordinary disciple could do. Su Xing's face did not change expressions. Flipping his wrist, an azure dragon treasure fan, too, appeared in his hand, imparting a continuous stream of star energy into the fan. Waving the treasure fan, a cool breeze rose in a whirlwind, and then the omnipresent whistling of the breeze turned into a dragon bursting out from the waters, rushing towards the youth with just a thought from Su Xing. The several dozen rock-piercing water droplets were cleanly destroyed by the violently rolling azure dragon. Azure dragon fan. The blue-clothed youth went mute. He foresaw too late that Su Xing could actually use this sort of artifact. The azure dragon fan was a high-grade artifact. Using it required consuming significant quantities of star energy, and generally, only nebula middle-stage cultivators could use it. However, Su Xing's star energy after signing contracts with 2 star generals was definitely a size larger than the ordinary person's, so he naturally had a surplus of star energy to control the azure dragon fan with. Though, using the Thunder Cry Sword and the azure dragon fan at the same time was putting Su Xing's divine intent through a great ordeal. Fortunately, the star nests of 2 star generals contained within his mind had virtually improved his divine intent's resiliency significantly. But for the blue-clothed youth, this all was nothing more than just seeing a monster. This was an only Nebula early-stage cultivator, not only using a high-grade artifact, but also even operating 3 artifacts total at the same time. 3. Even for he who was Nebula late stage, he could only barely operate 3 at once. The envy filling his heart changed into fury. At this time, the azure dragon spiraled wildly towards him, and the blue-clothed youth could only retreat. Fortunately, a magnificent dark blue light shot violently onto the azure dragon, striking and breaking the azure dragon apart. "Are you all right?" Cultivator Wu had hurried over to help the blue-clothed youth block the azure dragon. The battle between Su Xing and blue-clothed youth seemed to have been raging for a very long time, when actually this was all just within the blink of an eye. The Heavenly River Sword School disciples watched their own senior brother amazingly be pushed back. However, the blue-clothed youth's delaying provided an opportunity that let the fellow disciples rush over, especially the similarly Nebula late-stage cultivator Wu, who controlled his sword to block. Flying swords filled the sky and became a cage that firmly trapped Su Xing. In the end, just what is this guy? The blue-clothed youth's expression was unsightly. From his perspective, being unable to obstruct or kill Su Xing in a single blow was practically the greatest humiliation. Su Xing would never give him this opportunity, and he immediately recalled the Thunder Cry sword into his astral bag. With a fan pinched in one hand, and a gun clenched in the other, this definitely would not be easy. The rest of the school's disciples at this time had lost the bravado they had earlier. Every one of their expressions was nervous at facing this formidable enemy, for their own junior sister had just been killed off in a flash. And then they saw their senior brother fight several bouts with the enemy and got pushed back. They were restless from the bottom of their hearts, and if it had been them doing the fighting, they completely would not have had the power to fight back. That a Nebula early-stage cultivator unexpectedly had this sort of remarkable power was absolutely disgraceful. Cultivator Wu stared fixedly at Su Xing, and with a heavy voice, "I see that this brat must be a star master." Upon hearing this, the blue-clothed youth's expression relaxed. Star masters shook Liangshan, especially the star maidens with their unrivaled power. Killing them instantly was as easy as breathing for him. Since he was a star master, there was finally some comfort. "Huh, a star master. This is indeed good luck. Let's see where you'll run to this time." Cultivator Wu was furious. The swords that filled the air slowly stirred. If Su Xing decided to use a water escape talisman, these swords could easily run through him in less than a second. Use the heavenly water sword array to kill him. The blue-clothed youth shouted, urging on his magic energy, and the flying sword started to absorb water. "Have a taste of my thunder fire array." Su Xing cursed. Sweeping silver blade upwards, he continuously pulled the trigger. Bullets whooshed out of the barrel. 10 thunder fire bullets fiercely shot out. The 10 consecutively discharged bullets consumed just as much star energy as using an artifact, and Su Xing's entire body was nearly sore. However, he still pieced together the last of his strength to launch one last breakout. Actually, from the perspective of the blue-clothed youth, Cultivator Wu, or even another Nebula stage cultivator, the thunder fire bullets were far from threatening as long as they had sufficient time to guard. However, because these Nebula stage cultivators witnessed their own fellow's head be blown open by a gun, they unconsciously believed they were incapable of defending. They were frightened enough to faint that they recalled their flying swords to defend in front of them. This was also right on Su Xing's mind. Su Xing leaned towards his left. His target was the gap between 2 Nebula stage cultivators' defense. Cultivator Wu coldly smiled as he had already anticipated this, ordering his flying sword to stab forward. But Su Xing abruptly, in an instant, used his leftward movement to immediately rush directly towards the blue-clothed youth. This feint thoroughly dumbfounded everyone. They absolutely did not expect that Su Xing's first breach was only to give them a false impression, and his killing intent right now was real. The blue-clothed youth clearly did not anticipate that Su Xing would so unexpectedly and recklessly attack towards himself, but Cultivator Wu had also made an error in judgment towards the defense's weak spot. The youth was slightly flustered, and Su Xing had already arrived in front of him. "You Nebula early-stage brat really think this can defeat me?" The blue-clothed youth shouted loudly, his flying sword absorbing more water with a swipe. The rest of the cultivators at this time wanted to assist. The combined attack of the discharged thunder fire bullets and Su Xing was not unlike an explosion. A rolling thunder reverberated throughout and shook the rocky cave as if to collapse it. The rising smoke and dust soared up into the air and dispersed in all directions. The tranquil river waters abruptly rose up high and drove away the dust and smoke. At this time, Su Xing's figure had already disappeared without a trace. Scanning with divine intent unexpectedly revealed he had indeed inconceivably disappeared. Cultivator Wu did not dare believe that in these short few seconds that the opposition could escape his own range, but on second thought, he definitely used the water escape talisman to flee the flower dragon cave. Having been encircled by the Heavenly River Sword School, even if he was any more incredible, he was still only a Nebula early-stage cultivator, and this was the only road he could choose. That damned wretch! Cultivator Wu's rage was burning. This was still his first time ever receiving such a great humiliation. The Heavenly River Sword sect disciples also all showed shame upon their faces. This many people could not slow down a single Nebula early-stage cultivator, and once word got out, this would be a joke upon the Heavenly River Sword School. That brat is too cunning. After we get out, we must not let him go. Right, for junior sister's revenge. Several cultivators were filled with endless resentment, and Cultivator Wu stared coldly at them. Revenge? This many people could not get rid of one person, and they wanted revenge. He was afraid that the brat had already fled in fear. However, Cultivator Wu himself believed that if they did not have the blood rain pot, perhaps there would still be this sentiment. "Senior brother, you're bleeding." A female disciple cried, concerned. The blue-clothed youth's neck had a bloody hole, and fresh blood gushed forth from it. "It's only a flesh wound." The blue-clothed scowled, feeling that his own shame this time around was great. He had been toyed with by a young brat, and in the end, had even been stabbed in the neck. The moment he left this place, he would definitely find and dismember that brat into tiny pieces. "Still, you'd best cover that wound for now," Cultivator Wu said. The blue-clothed youth nodded. He took a deep breath, preparing to retrieve from his astral bag a bottle of medicine to cover the wound when he touched empty space. Looking down, his anger immediately erupted. That lousy son of a bitch. What happened? Numerous disciples were frightened. Could it be that the air made senior brother go mad? That wretch stole my astral bag. The blue-clothed youth went insane, there was no way he could continue pretending to be level-headed. Several people's jaws hung wide open, speechless. That brat was too incredible. In such a desperate situation, he unexpectedly did not overlook taking advantage of the situation for a profit. What sort of calm was this, and thinking about it, they all trembled in fear. Just grab some junior brother's medicine for now. Cultivator Wu was helpless. If we ran into the blooming water sword sect's people now, it would be rather troublesome. Who is it that feels running into us is rather troublesome? Suddenly, a mocking voice passed over. The Heavenly River Sword School stiffened one body after another, just like when they were facing their great enemy before. A group of blue and white-robed men and women walked over from one of the cave's entrances, a blooming water sword suspended in midair. "So, it's my friend, Wu. Assembling this many people together, I don't know what the fun occasion is. Ah, how did that senior brother get injured? Were you guys too careless?" The speaking Qin Zhonglin's smile brought with it an arrogant mockery. The people who came were actually the blooming water sword sect's disciples. Cultivator Wu tasted from the bottom of his heart at this time what Su Xing previously already experienced. What he really did not want to come had come anyways. This truly was the same as bad luck. The tranquil lake suddenly erupted with the sound of breaking water. A lone figure climbed out from inside the lake. That really was dangerous. Su Xing shook his head vigorously, using his star energy to evaporate the water clinging to his entire body. He sat upon a rock, panting, while he sized up the surrounding environment. There did not appear to be anyone else, but in an area not too far away, there were several fallen corpses. It seemed that a battle previously took place here. Su Xing turned his head back to look at the lake. His own thinking was not wrong, the Flower Dragon Cave's lakes were all interconnected with one another. Fortunately, this was what let him break away from Cultivator Wu, otherwise the outcome from facing an entire group of Nebula stage cultivators encircling him would have been unpleasant. At the same time, it was not as if he did not gain any rewards this time. Su Xing's lips carried a smile as he brought out a blue astral bag. When he charged that blue-clothed youth, he used the sword to stab him to divert his attention, and taking advantage of that, he snatched away this bag more easily than he had imagined it would be. Su Xing mobilized his divine intent, opening the astral bag. Time to see just what kind of toys were inside this Nebula late-stage cultivator's bag. A copy of Water Droplet True Technique, a Heavenly Water School Flying Sword and a set of what seemed to be Eagle Talon Chains, 2. An intermediate-grade artifact known as Shark Claw Hook, 3, and a high-grade artifact Shark Scale Shield, more than 300 Ice Break Talismans, 5, a single Water Escape Divine Talisman, 6, more than 6,000 liang of gold, 2 bottles of Return Spirit Liquid, 7, that could restore a bit of magic energy, some supplementary pills, odd refining utensils used to concoct pills out of materials that were not few in number, as well as 12 Thunder Water Flowers. It seemed the Heavenly Water Sword School gave a share of the Thunder Water Flowers they plucked to him for safekeeping, but that let Su Xing take a big score for cheap. Apart from this, there was still a transparent bottle half filled with transparent what looked to be water droplets. These droplets were very odd. They were obviously a liquid, but they were also single, separate droplets linked together like frog eggs, somewhat disgusting. Sniffing it, it did not seem to be a wonder drug, but rather something like what that blue-clothed youth spat out. Fighting against the blooming water demonic python and the Heavenly River Sword Schools, that one person wasted a large portion of Su Xing's star energy, but it was just the right moment to use that bottle of Return Spirit Liquid to replenish his power. Tidying up a bit, Su Xing soon afterwards set out towards the Flower Dragon Pond in a hurry. After some period of time and experiencing the twists and turns of a daunting experience without a major mishap, he arrived at Flower Dragon Pond. Su Xing's person was not carrying an additional 2 astral bags and 8 more Thunder Water Flowers. These were all offerings from a few careless cultivators he encountered along the road. Su Xing did not feel like dealing with nonsense. Regardless of gender or age, those that obviously evilly moved a hand against him were sent back to meet their maker, 8, directly and cleanly turned to dust. More than 20 Thunder Water Flowers in addition to a Thunder Water Flower Snake Crown, the Su Xing who had originally thought he would never seize these things had a harvest that was nevertheless far greater than anyone else's. Arriving at the Flower Dragon Pond, Su Xing saw a graceful white figure. Gong Kaiwei sat beside the lake, her outstretched hand playing idly with a small white flower to pass the time. At first glance, she looked like a woman waiting to rendezvous with her sweetheart. Su Xing said to himself that this immortal hero princess could really be sensual, but would it not be her own fault for being treated as a target, standing at the center of the Flower Dragon Pond like that? Su Xing wrinkled his brow, tempted to see just what sort of skills Gong Kaiwei had, disappearing to the side. Not a moment later, 5, 6 cultivators discovered the eye-catching figure of that beauty. Not saying much of anything, they went directly to killing. Flying swords, flying daggers, and any flying artifact that could attack all without exception took flight. The moment the small white flower in Gong Kaiwei's hand broke into pieces, that beautiful figure swayed only slightly, dodging the artifact's attacks. Tracing snow in hand, it brandished a wide, snowy light. The attacking artifacts were then all cut down. Careful, it's Snow Soul Sword Arts. She's from the Heavenly Ice Sacred Palace, a military cultivator. A cultivator that saw clearly cried out loud. Cultivators could be split into 2 types, artifact cultivators, and military cultivators, not unlike Maiden Mountain Star Maidens. The so-called military cultivators could also be called sword cultivators, and they were skilled with cold military weapons. Fighting using close combat arts, these cultivators often chased after the sublime, a sword in hand, at the top of the world. 9. Sword of Spirit. Liangshan continent had many varieties of sword schools, and the Blooming Water Sword sect and the Heavenly River Sword School were both part of the same type. Of course, if sword cultivators really wanted to succeed in surmounting their limits, it was necessary for them to use everything they had, so most of the time, sword cultivators were also focused on using artifacts. The cultivators promptly called their swords, and their flying swords moved violently around Gong Saiwei's whole body. Tens of talismans were thrown out one by one, every kind of brilliant light swirling about her. Su Xing was considering if he should or should not intervene. A faint, disdaining snort sounded out. Gong Saiwei's eyes carried an expression of derision. She approached with light steps, her posture lightly revolving, tracing snow issuing a ray of cold light. A cultivator that was not defending was closed in on, and afterwards, by the time he reacted, he was already cut down by a sword. Sword wind condenses frost. 10. The flower dragon pond's ambient temperature plummeted, the water's surface froze over, and tracing snow fired a powerful intent that shook the attacking artifacts. Right after, the sword tip flew out from within Gong Saiwei's hand, drawing a circle in midair. This was the immortal hero princess' last extraordinary sword power. The cultivators collapsed, eyes wide open. For a time, the atmosphere was cold, as if a northerly wind had passed through. You've arrived much too late. Gong Kaiwei said softly. Su Xing walked out from the rock face, lightly laughing. As expected, these Nebula early-stage cultivators could not bring any sort of trouble to Gong Kaiwei. This woman was quite troublesome. Seeing as how you were thoroughly enjoying yourself, I did not wish to bother you. Su Xing glanced at the corpses beneath him. Their necks had traces of frozen blood. This was a fatal wound. Gong Kaiwei was smiling, yet she was not. Then can we leave? And, the flower dragon cave is almost about to disappear. Su Xing nodded, asking, where is that heavenly star forbid dance? Gong Saiwei's expression briefly indicated towards the flower dragon pond. Gong Kaiwei first used her divine intent to conduct a sweep on the surrounding 100 meters in order to avoid others disturbing herself. After seeing no one was around, she and Su Xing took their positions. Following her command, Su Xing complied, moving his divine intent. The astral crest upon his forehead slowly glowed brighter and brighter. Gong Saiwei's spotlessly white forehead also showed a gorgeous astral crest. The two each recited, "Go," and their own astral crests and divine intents entered the flower dragon lake. The tranquil lake waters began to ripple and crash violently. The waters turned from a light blue to a dark blue color. Su Xing saw incorporeal objects seemingly disappear from sight, and asking what they should do next, Gong Kaiwei was then like a mermaid, leaping in a beautiful arc into the lake water. Su Xing jumped down after her without doubt. Just at the moment he jumped into the lake water, the water immediately disappeared. Su Xing's legs then stepped onto a stone slab. The surroundings were an immense hall, with its interior brightly lit with fire. It was completely different from the flower dragon cave. Su Xing had no way of believing this for a moment, for this felt like he just time traveled. Turning his head around, he saw Gong Kaiwei. The girl's body was thoroughly drenched, peerlessly beautiful. 11. The white cloth soaked by water revealed the skin beneath it, her milky white undergarments also faintly visible. 12. With her fine black hair dripping water, her brow wet with dew, she was just beautiful, absolutely too beautiful. Look any further, and I'll gouge those dog eyes. Gong Kaiwei said indignantly. It did not occur to her that she would actually touch water when she jumped down. Raising her hand, her body emanated a watery mist, and the water all over her body evaporated away. Su Xing clicked his tongue, feeling considerable pity about the image of a beauty exiting the bath. A magic energy rolled by, and Su Xing promptly evaded. Seeing Gong Kaiwei was somewhat resentful, he changed the subject. Where is this? Flower Dragon Hall. Gong Kaiwei spat out these words, a strange fervor within her eyes. 1. Right arrow curving left 2. Right arrow curving left 3. Right arrow curving left 4. Right arrow curving left 5. Right arrow curving left 6. Right arrow curving left 7. Right arrow curving left 8. Right arrow curving left 9. Right arrow curving left 10. Right arrow curving left 11. Right arrow curving left 12. By the way, in the coming chapters, you will see much more of Lenny-san in the future, degree. The main hall was very wide, with not a thing in sight. At one end was a cold pool, but apart from this, the Flower Dragon Hall had absolutely nothing. Gong Kaiwei walked hastily towards the pool. Su Xing watched her, doubting whether the true blooming water divine thunder was just a pretense to get his help in undoing the forbid dance. The issue at hand was that whoever laid down this forbid dance should also have hidden something else. Seeing Su Xing's bewilderment, Gong Kaiwei said, "Do you know why the Flower Dragon Cave would have the blooming water divine thunder?" The newcomer Su Xing was not even clear on the heavenly river and such, so how could he ever know anything about this sort of incredible matter? Although this piece of business had already been investigated beforehand, the published historical records did not have any sort of useful information. "Just give it to me straight," Su Xing said. Legends say that under this Flower Dragon Cave is hidden an ancient demon beast. Its every breath will spout a sort of black water. After a period of accumulation, this black water will slowly give rise to a strange water thunder flower, and that happens to be the thunder water flower. A teasing smile flicked across a corner of Gong Kaiwei's lips. After a capable person learned of this, he suppressed this demon beast beneath the heavenly river to exploit the properties of this black water, and then he laid down a Mount Meru closed pit forbid dance art. 2. The inside of this forbid dance art allows only nebulous stage cultivators to enter because any higher cultivation will respond to the hidden demon beast, and this was done to prevent them from killing it. Hearing Gong Kaiwei's words, Su Xing felt that this was actually very complicated. "Your meaning is that the blooming water divine thunder are all spat out by that demon beast?" Gong Kaiwei showed a, "that was obvious," expression. "So, if you want the true blooming water divine thunder, no other is as good as acquiring that demon beast's correct type of blooming water." Su Xing looked as if he were staring at a monster. "Gong Kaiwei, you're not confused, are you?" Gong Kaiwei stopped moving. Turning her head, her countenance was somewhat displeased. Su Xing did not care for her temper. "You said to acquire that, but isn't this the same as death? You said so already, that it is an ancient demon beast that even the expert that laid down this forbid dance was not able to subdue. You really do have too much confidence in yourself." Are you scared?" Gong Kaiwei gave a mocking smile. 3. Although Su Xing still only knew many of Liangshan continent's things superficially, he still knew of a certain principle. Since this could be called an ancient demon beast, this definitely was not an adorable kitten or puppy. Shouting a couple words at it would be fair enough, and besides, dogs always bit people, let alone a demon beast, an ancient one at that. Even the difficulty level in playing games still needed to increase one by one in order, and only on a certain level does one go kill the boss, nor was there an idiot wearing common clothing holding a wooden sword loudly challenging Azuma. 5. Master. That was not fear, but stupidity. Gong Kaiwei was clearly very bright, at least staying with the immortal hero princess at the same time was absolutely not stupid. Seeing her with that carefree attitude, Su Xing frowned. "You must be hiding something that you still haven't told me?" Gong Kaiwei very charmingly smiled. This Gong naturally knows about the might of the ancient demon beast, but according to this Gong's guess, this ancient demon beast has been trapped here for so long that it has already entered its declining years now. Perhaps it has not got much longer to live, as it already cannot be counted as an ancient demon beast. 6. How can you be sure? Su Xing was not reassured. This Gong and Zhu Wu already investigated the events of Flower Dragon Cave more clearly than the young master by far. From the ever-weakening divine thunders the blooming water sword sect has refined and the thunder water flowers decreasing in numbers, we knew then that this was already weaker than we had hoped. Now is not the time to wait, yet we are still waiting. Merely leaning on the data of these historical materials, yet she dared to challenge the ancient demon beast. If this woman was not a lunatic, she was a genius. This is your final chance. If the young master wants the blooming water divine thunder, then come together with this Gong to fight the ancient demon beast. Gong Kaiwei said flatly. Su Xing cursed silently. He did not believe that Gong Kaiwei lacked a trump card that could kill him, but since she had already said as much, Su Xing had no reason to shrink back in front of a woman. Since we've arrived here, I also want to see what this ancient demon beast looks like. Gong Kaiwei smiled faintly, then, please be careful, young master. Gong Kaiwei stopped where she was, slightly parting her red lips and read an incantation. The tracing snow sword immediately unsheathed and flew to above the cold pool. With a spiritual power, it revolved in a circle, its edge emitting a cold light. Then, Gong Kaiwei urged on her star energy, and a piece of jade flew out, suspending itself on tracing snow. Subsequently, the cold smoke, 7, emitted by tracing snow was completely absorbed. Immediately after, Gong Kaiwei below made a hand seal, and using one finger, a blue light spouted from her hand onto the increasingly cold jade. In an instant, the jade frantically spun faster, its color turning even colder. Along with the jade spinning, the surrounding air temperature also abruptly plummeted to dozens of degrees below 0. 8, even if he was separated by 100 meters, Su Xing still felt a cold intent. The pool water began to freeze over. Su Xing was freezing and annoyed, but he did not dare relax in the slightest, one hand holding silver blade, the other taking out the shark scale shield and placing it in front of them while surreptitiously placing the astral treasure profound star barrier on his stomach. This star treasure slowly accumulated magic energy across more than 10 days and now had a hint of magic energy, but as for how long it could hold out, Su Xing's heart was very unsure. Seeing that cold reception, Su Xing clicked his tongue. As expected of the immortal hero princess, for that piece of jade perhaps was a supreme-grade nebula stage artifact. You damned animal, even when you're under this Gong's cold smoke jade, 9, you refuse to roll yourself out. 10. Gong Kaiwei continued to make 2 more hand seals, and blue light shot violently towards the treasures. That cold smoke jade issued an even more cold light while the air temperature was starting to freeze the main hall. Under Gong Kaiwei's concentrated effort, the depths of the pond finally exhibited signs of activity. With some place in the pond as its epicenter, the frozen ice sheet on the lake split open a slight crack. The crack spread with the rapid speed of a contagious disease, and the main hall rocked about as if by rippling waves. Even if it still had not appeared, a mighty power was already jolting the entire hall. It was truly unbelievable. Su Xing. Gong Kaiwei's complexion was grim. Ignoring how she spoke so self-confidently, when she truly knew that ancient demon beast revealed itself, she was tense from the bottom of her heart. Su Xing said to himself that this was indeed insane, and took out the Thunder Cry sword without the slightest hesitation. A loud bang that shook the world. As the ice shattered, a blue jet of water shot straight up, and the freezing ice immediately dissolved, producing a cold fog within which was a vaguely visible slender shadow. Su Xing and Gong Kaiwei immediately tightened their fingers. The tracing snow and thunder cry swords suspended above the lake water together stabbed downward. From within the white of the mist, and the sound of a loud AO 11 wailing resounded. A sharp shrieking noise passed through the hall, followed closely only by the sound of something collapsing. A water thunder detonated in the air above, and the surrounding whiteness was swept cleanly away. The true identity of the demon beast was then revealed. That was a body dozens of zhang, 12, long. It was a dark and scaleless, bizarre snake somewhat resembling the blooming water python he encountered earlier, but the difference was that this strange snake's head was like a snake's, yet not like one's. Upon its head grew sharp, dark blue horns, with a vaguely penetrating luster. Below its belly were 2 claws, incomparably sharp. The ancient demon beast was shockingly a blooming water dragon. 13. The 2 flying swords used at full power had only gouged out a wound the size of their thumbs. Looking at it, it seemed as if they were trying to scratch an itch. 14. The blooming water dragon was nevertheless angry. It issued a dragon chant, its great mouth opening and closing. Immediately, a frightening water thunder spouted out. 1. No, shit. From the description I couldn't have figured it out. Right arrow curving left 2. Right arrow curving left 3. That's flag number 1, and this is the common sense of a soldier clashing with the logic of a pampered hero. Right arrow curving left 4. Right arrow curving left 5. An old video game right arrow curving left 6. That's flag number 2 right arrow curving left 7. Don't know when it started smoking, guys. Right arrow curving left 8. I'm assuming in Celsius. Right arrow curving left 9. Right arrow curving left 10. And bingo, that's flag number 3 right arrow curving left 11. Right arrow curving left 12. 3. 3M right arrow curving left 13. Right arrow curving left 14. Have fun, you too. The water thunder was just like a splashing torrential downpour, sweeping across the entire Flower Dragon Hall. The high-grade Nebula Star artifact Shark Scale Shield was immediately left in dire straits by the detonation of this blooming water thunder, which carved deep gashes into it. If it had scored a direct hit, Su Xing did not dare imagine what the end of that would be. Gong Caiwei's steps were like rising smoke, using her excellent stance and footwork to avoid these water thunders. She did not forget to initiate an incantation while dodging, directing Tracing Snow to do its utmost in attacking the blooming water dragon. The blooming water dragon suddenly soared into the air, its more than 10 zhang body floating about the main hall, just like a real dragon would soar through clouds and mist. Unexpectedly, it had begun to fight the 2 flying swords. Sword swiftly rides the wind. Go! Gong Caiwei and Su Xing did not dare to lower their guard, using this opportunity to activate the soul techniques of their artifacts. Tracing Snow turned into a cold light that pierced through the dragon's body, but the blooming water dragon floated around, extending 2 sharp claws that unexpectedly blocked Tracing Snow directly. Su Xing cursed, forming hand seals, linking together the incantations inside his mouth. True thunder punishes evil, nothing will not burn. Punishing evil divine thunder. The thunder cry sword transformed into a bolt of lightning, striking towards the blooming water dragon. Although it had the words, divine thunder, it fell short of true divine thunder by far. The blooming water dragon opened its maw wide, spraying out a stream of water like a thunderclap, slamming into the thunder cry sword with an explosion. The ancient demon beast's blooming water divine thunder could not be compared with the intermediate grade thunder cry sword. Su Xing violently spat out a mouthful of blood. The thunder cry sword was shockingly unable to do anything but be blown to pieces by the dragon's water thunder, causing Su Xing distress. With a dragon incantation of the 9 firmaments, the blooming water dragon suddenly coiled its body, keeping a dim light in its mouth. Be careful, it's blooming water divine thunder. Gong Caiwei turned pale with fright, an artifact putting a barrier in front of her. She had barely uttered those words before a long, deafening cry resounded. A thunderbolt then sprayed forth from the blooming water dragon's mouth. It was unlike those water thunders from before. The thunderbolt sprayed out this time turned into a straight line that concentrated all the water thunders into a single point. Its target was shockingly Su Xing. The blooming water divine thunder speed was fast enough that it could pass by in the blink of an eye, and the shark scale shield forcibly blocked this water thunder. As expected of an artifact that used a shark demon beast in its construction to not shatter on the spot against this, but it did lose much of its spiritual power, falling to the ground. Su Xing's heart sank. He had only just thought of raising his gun when the figure of the dim, dark blue light loomed over him. The blooming water dragon's pair of dragon pupils stared at Su Xing, its mouth full of sharp teeth. Being this close to the dragon from legends, its mighty power and pressure unexpectedly shook Su Xing such that he had no way to move. SFX, Cassier. The blooming water dragon's claw scratched against Su Xing's stomach, directly sending him flying. This demon beast also wanted to take the opportunity to kill him, but how could Gong Kaiwei ever give it that chance? Throwing out a water line, the moment it touched air, it multiplied in size several times, becoming an icy light that immediately wrapped around the dragon. A narrow ring took shape surrounding the blooming water dragon's body, and it tightly held the dragon in place. The blooming water dragon roared endlessly, struggling with all its might. Gong Kaiwei hurried herself and flew in front. Su Xing, you're still alive, right? Gong Kaiwei's heart tightened. Getting scratched head-on by the ancient dragon demon beast, never mind a nebula stage cultivator, even a galaxy stage cultivator would necessarily perish without doubt. Su Xing spat out several mouthfuls of foul blood. Raising himself up and tearing open his jacket, he revealed that underneath was a golden thread fish scale armor. Though his complexion was unsightly, if he did not lean upon this golden thread fish scale armor, he would have already been eviscerated and disemboweled by this dragon. The power of that one dragon claw was truly incomparably tyrannical. Even the top-notch artifact golden thread fish scale armor had a slight crack torn in it. They had only fought 3 bouts with this demon beast, but the Thunder Cry sword was shattered, the shark scale shield heavily weakened, and the golden thread fish scale armor was also showing a crack. Su Xing was gloomy from the bottom of his heart. Gong Kaiwei, couldn't you have used this thing earlier? That water line already almost completely sealed the dragon. It seemed very exceptional if the ancient demon beast was unable to free itself. The ice sealing line is not capable of sustaining itself for very long. Right now, it was used far too early. For the blooming water dragon's power to be able to struggle this much, Gong Kaiwei's complexion was grim, knowing in her heart that her own supreme-grade nebula stage artifact was seemingly about to be destroyed here. Although this ancient demon beast has entered its declining years, the imposing aura it could emit exceeded Gong Kaiwei's expectations. Tracing snow returned to her hand. With its spiritual power suffering a great loss to the strike of the dragon claw, she could only return it to her astral bag. If you have any means to fight this, bring it out quickly. This gong nearly cannot restrain the demon beast any longer. The blooming water dragon spared no effort in its struggle, and the ice sealing line was also starting to become undone. Gong Kaiwei leapt, her white fingers forming a complex series of orchid hand seals. Then, 6 cold smoke jades flew out from her astral bag and added themselves to the one from before for a total of 7, laying out an array over Gong Kaiwei's whole body. Su Xing was amazed to see that Gong Kaiwei unexpectedly had so many cold smoke jades. These were not artifacts at all, but magic weapon materials. It was too late to think about this as he saw the ancient demon beast blooming water dragon had already broke free of the ice seal. Knowing that the means Gong Kaiwei was talking about was a trump card, whenever the demon beast broke free, then whatever other means they had, it would be hard to imagine this continuing. With a curse, the high-grade nebula stage artifact firebolt sword he had yet to become proficient with sword out, suspended before Su Xing stirred his magic energy, unceasingly imbuing star energy into the firebolt sword. The wooden sword turned red as a branding iron, vaguely dispersing a heat into the surroundings. The blade edge slowly took on the shape and form of lightning fire, issuing a crackling and tearing, a burning and scorching sound. The Gong Kaiwei standing to the side could not help but raise her eyebrows in shock upon seeing it. The 7 cold smoke jades revolved at great speed and finally turned into 7 cold lights. In the air above them, they were like brilliant stars. An overwhelming cold intent was emitted, and the cold lights became increasingly bright until they finally were already dazzling as if to blind the eyes. Under the rays of that blue light, Gong Kaiwei's face was cold frost, seemingly like an ice-cold fairy. Su Xing could not help but shiver from the bottom of his heart. Gong Kaiwei's trump card sure enough was impressive. The ancient demon beast seemed to have also received this oppressiveness, struggling to increase its ferocity. A lightning flash was issued from the blooming water dragon's body, and the ice seal finally tore open, incapable of holding out any longer. The supreme grade artifact then became a pile of fragments just like that. You beast, taste this Gong's 1,000 cold stars true technique. Gong Kaiwei gave it all her strength, and 7 cold stars flashed by, 7 freezing to the very bone cold stars quickly dug into the blooming water dragon's body. The blooming water dragon let out a snarl, the inside of its body becoming almost like it was transparent for a split second, and its internal meridians, flesh and organs could distinctly be seen. Then, a cold, dark blue light penetrated out from the blooming water dragon's body, turning the dragon into a body that issued light, a scene that was very terrifying. Su Xing believed that if Gong Kaiwei were to use this 1,000 cold stars true technique on him, he could only sit and wait for death. As they say, a starving camel is bigger than a horse. It was an ancient blooming water dragon, after all. Even if it was already in its declining years, it still really was not something a nebula stage cultivator could oppose. Gong Kaiwei's sacred ice-cold ice charm, in the end, was a killing method only nebula late-stage cultivators used. After a long and painful cry, the blooming water dragon opened wide its terrible maw, a dim light immediately condensing. Gong Kaiwei's complexion changed. She did not think that this animal could still spout out blooming water divine thunder. And it was at this time, that from beside her came comforting words. Honorable Taoist receives orders, heavenly lightning earthly fire, go. Su Xing chanted. The wooden sword's lightning turned into a brilliant red lightning that looked just like a threatening dragon which precisely struck the blooming water dragon's mouth. The lightning directly shot out of its chest, and the dim light in its mouth extinguished. The blooming water dragon's body shook violently, and it immediately loosed a miserable and mournful dragon cry. Liked it? The blooming water dragon let out a heartrending cry, its entire body under attack by lightning fire and icy frost. Finally, it could bear no more and fell right where it was, and the icy fog that shrouded the atmosphere diffused away. The atmosphere surrounding the two was so tense that they did not dare breathe, did not dare relax in even the slightest, fixing their gaze on the dragon's each and every move. Su Xing panted heavily, for this firebolt sword was truly not easy to use. This heavenly lightning art nearly exhausted his star energy. The deep and low, sobbing of the dragon reverberated throughout the hall, a sound that moved the heart. After the cold mist covering the place dispersed, the blooming water dragon raised its slender and long body, its mouth spewing a savage breath, a pair of dragon eyes fixed completely upon them. Gong Kaiwei's expression changed, and Su Xing silently cursed. This ancient demon beast simply crawled back up under the combined attacks of two people. The dragon took to the air, opening its mouth to spit out another water thunder. Go! Gong Kaiwei dodged, flying away. With a subtle hand seal, the 5 styles burning phoenix hairpins shot towards the blooming water dragon with a whoosh. This high-grade artifact nailed into the dragon's body, igniting a dark flame. However, this was already considered nothing to the blooming water dragon. The dragon hissed, and with a splash, the water thunder forced the two to flee with great difficulty. The blooming water dragon was thoroughly infuriated. Its body coiled in the air, launching a high-speed assault. The dragon's powerful pressure pressed towards them from head-on, its dragon tail sweeping away. A powerful force whipped upon the two's bodies, slamming them heavily into the hall's walls. Subsequently, the blooming water dragon turned into a cold light, rushing directly at Gong Kaiwei. Gong Kaiwei had been rendered dazed and unseeing by this toss from the dragon. When she returned to her senses, the dragon had already appeared in front of her. The color drained from the immortal hero princess face. A cold light crossed the room, and the flying sword tracing snow acted as a barrier. Hey! Gong Kaiwei violently spat out a great amount of fresh blood, her internal organs seemingly about to split open. The dark red blood dyed her purer than snow clothes a deep crimson. The blooming water dragon's sharp claws tore towards Gong Kaiwei, and the immortal hero princess pupils shrunk, as if she had given up all hope. 2. Just at this moment, a claw hook entangled the blooming water dragon's talons. In a moment of peril, the one who acted was none other than Su Xing. Su Xing tugged hard on the sharp claw hook, instilling his remaining star energy into the hook. It was just that this nebula intermediate stage artifact was simply a decoration to the wrathful blooming water dragon. The blooming water dragon hissed, and its sharp claws tore ferociously. Unexpectedly, Su Xing was pulled together with the sharp claw hook and sent flying, slamming heavily into the wall. However, Su Xing's intervention gave Gong Kaiwei time to react. The girl's double-edged sword rose, a cold light that pierced snow stabbing into the dragon's pupil. Then narrowly escaping with her body arts, she became like an approaching smoke. The blooming water dragon cried an even louder screech that even the main hall could not bear. Water thunders filled the sky in Flower Dragon Hall, stirring a violent storm of water. Su Xing only felt that all the bones in his body were nearly broken. It was unbearably painful, and seeing this landscape only brought new waves of pain. 3. Sure enough, this ancient demon beast could not be rashly challenged, for how could they ever get past its imposing air? Gong Kaiwei landed beside him, expressing gratitude to him. Quickly block this blooming water thunder, otherwise we both will die here. She tapped an astral bag and more than 100 talismans came screaming out, but without waiting for the talisman spells and techniques to activate, the blooming water dragon's water thunder cleanly destroyed a great portion of the talismans. Su Xing did not have enough time to tend to the pain in his body. At this time, he did not expect that the several hundred ice break talismans he obtained from the Heavenly River Sword School's blue-clothed youth would have a pivotal role. Along with Gong Kaiwei, Su Xing threw out every single ice break and splashing fire talisman he had. As the blooming water divine thunder swept past, it wiped out half of the talismans, but there was still the other half that activated. Immediately, countless icicles and fireballs under the control of Su Xing's divine intent covered the sky and earth as they overflowed towards the blooming water dragon. Gong Kaiwei waved her white hand, and at the same time, threw out several hundred talismans. The talismans turned into a twisting wind, entangling the blooming water dragon. This woman truly was rich, for these 100 talismans unexpectedly were wind kill, making this toss cost several tens of thousands of liang of gold. 5. Under the consecutive attacks of icicles, fireballs and twisting wind, the already heavily injured blooming water dragon constantly bellowed in suffering. Su Xing seized the opportunity to quaff down a returned spirit liquid without leaving a single drop. If this damned animal still did not die, then he would really be powerless. Even if he were to use the blaze refining saber right now, he still did not have any extra star energy. Su Xing cursed, tossing out a dark red fragrant handkerchief, and the fragrant handkerchief multiplied several times in size without warning, turning from a small handkerchief into the size of a rug. Under Su Xing's control, the fragrant handkerchief spiraled around the top of the blooming water dragon's head, rotating clockwise. Su Xing spat out an incantation, his hand seals shooting out a red light that struck upon the fragrant handkerchief. The fragrant handkerchief went faster and faster, until finally, it was already indistinct, becoming a dark red cloud of miasma. Magical fire cloud fragrant handkerchief? Gong Kaiwei went blank, looking at Su Xing in amazement. This guy really had too much star energy. He was at Nebula early stage yet he could use several artifacts in succession. This was really unfathomable, but Gong Kaiwei had not much time to think, for at this moment, the most important thing for Su Xing was that the more favorable his position to take action, the better. Recognizing this, Gong Kaiwei also replenished some magic energy and used, with great difficulty, an artifact to help out. The 100 talismans were nearly all depleted, and the blooming water dragon was as it was before, suspended in midair. Completely covered in cuts and bruises, these low-level talismans barely posed a threat to the ancient demon beast. Su Xing seized the opportunity to chant, "Fall." The red cloud above the dragon immediately shot down with a crash, thoroughly wrapping the blooming water dragon in a surging and turbulent dark fire cloud. Not good. Su Xing's expression changed greatly. This magical fire cloud fragrant handkerchief seemed to be just like a leech, unceasingly absorbing Su Xing's star energy. All of his star energy that was not under his direct control was sucked away. How could he have not anticipated that this nebulous stage artifact would unexpectedly be more fearsome than the firebolt sword and the like? Not only was his star energy being rapidly absorbed, his physical energy was also being chipped away, and it was too late to stop even if he wanted to. Once the blooming water dragon was trapped, it was rolled up. Until Su Xing's star energy was completely depleted, only then did the magical fire cloud handkerchief seemingly reluctantly recall its fire cloud, becoming a red light that shot into Su Xing's astral bag. The blooming water dragon was indeed unreasonably vicious enough to make their hair stand on end. It unexpectedly still had not fallen, however, the blooming water dragon fortunately could no longer spout out any more blooming water divine thunder. Its haggard and bruised body's movements had also begun to slow down. The blooming water dragon snarled, scratching towards the Su Xing that already completely did not have any defensive strength left. 6. Currently, Su Xing did not even have the strength to stand. His eyes stared hopelessly at the rushing blooming water dragon, silently shouting miserably. Su Xing! Gong Kaiwei shouted. A graceful and delicate figure drew him into her embrace. With a tap of her toe, Gong Kaiwei avoided the blooming water dragon's attack and then flew to the ledges and walls of the great hall. Hold tightly onto me. His head was covered by Gong Kaiwei's full and elastic bosom, and Su Xing subconsciously hugged Gong Kaiwei's upraised butt. 7. Red clouds flew across Gong Kaiwei's face. Gritting her silvery teeth, it was too late for misgivings. She exhausted all her strength to fully use her light movements to avoid the blooming water dragon's snapping jaws. Fortunately, this ancient demon beast had been repeatedly pounded to the point it already had no strength left to spit out blooming water divine thunder, otherwise, these two would have been done for a long time ago. That this ancient demon beast at its dusk would be so difficult to deal with had been far from being considered by Gong Kaiwei. 8. The maiden's snow lotus body scent made Su Xing slightly open his eyes, regaining just a bit of strength with great difficulty. However, the positions of Su Xing's head and hands did not change. 9. Gong Kaiwei's tender body was indeed soft and comfortable such that he could not bear to part from it. Kaiwei, we better escape quickly. Su Xing panted heavily. At present, the two were arrows at the end of their path. 10. No. Gong Kaiwei was resolute. Then whatever other artifact you have, you'd better use it quickly. Su Xing thought she still had some finishing blow left. This gong has nothing left, do not randomly move your hands, Gong Kaiwei was indignant. 11. The blooming water dragon suddenly exerted some strength. Gong Kaiwei narrowly avoided it, but Su Xing grasped her soft flesh so firmly she almost thought of throwing him down. However, recalling that Su Xing saved herself once, she endured it. She, Gong Kaiwei, was not a fickle person. Your artifact just now already inflicted serious damage upon the dragon. Next, we only have to wait for it to exhaust its strength. Gong Kaiwei calmed her mind. Suddenly, the blooming water dragon swung its dragon tail at them, throwing Gong Kaiwei into the wall. Su Xing was not too concerned when he saw this. Holding her body tightly, he turned, becoming a human sandbag against the wall. He also knew that, right now, he could not let Gong Kaiwei suffer injury, otherwise the two would inevitably die like lovers. 12, and become the blooming water dragon's lunch. This violent impact stuck the two's bodies even closer, with Gong Kaiwei's supple chest pasting itself directly onto Su Xing's face. 9. Liangshan continent's clothes generally covered less, so once Gong Kaiwei's white skirt was touched by water, her underwear became visible. Such a heavy impact also made Gong Kaiwei's lovable body shake. She almost let out a tender moan. This was still the very first time she had been close to a man in this way. This bastard's mouth definitely must be torn up in order for this to work. Gong Kaiwei cursed, and tracing snow flew over to disperse the blooming water dragon's speed. And just like this, within the flower dragon hall was staged the emulation of a farce. Whenever the ancient demon beast blooming water dragon rose in defiance, Gong Kaiwei would throw out a few talismans or use tracing snow to hold it back. Fortunately, that tracing snow was a god weapon and trump card that had several times turned peril into safety. Su Xing had his strength very cleanly removed by that monstrous magical fire cloud handkerchief. Though he wished to help, he was unable to. He could only hug Gong Saiwei's side and point out a direction to avoid the blooming water dragon. Seeing this pair's escape sequence, Su Xing did not know whether to laugh or cry. This outcome was only brought about by the two working together as one, and switching to Gong Kaiwei doing things alone was simply a death sentence. This was also the first time Su Xing experienced the terror of an ancient demon beast, and even if he were to die, he could not despise it. And so they chased each other lethally like this for some time, and even Gong Kaiwei was gradually overdrawing her energy. Her movements became slow while the blooming water dragon was about driven mad with resentment. It was an ancient demon beast, yet it unexpectedly seemed as if it was a cat or dog chasing them, which was indeed a great humiliation. At this moment, the blooming water dragon stopped, its entire body trembling incessantly. Things looked to be more or less as Gong Kaiwei had anticipated. This dragon had used up most of its energy after its frenzy, for its age was old, after all. It was also beaten half to death by two people, and now, it had chased them for a very long time. The blooming water dragon had reached its limit, and it thought of fleeing back into the lake water, only to discover that Gong Kaiwei had frozen it over in advance. Right now, it had lost even the strength to shatter the ice. That dragon has stopped, Su Xing said. Gong Kaiwei also stopped, her chest heaving up and down with a fatigue unbearable. Su Xing only saw her gaze turn upwards. At this time, the blooming water dragon became increasingly strange, for it straightened its body as if to fight once more. Its two cheeks swelled, rising and falling, clearly wanting again to spray out blooming water divine thunder. This time, the two's faces were extremely dejected. If it really spouted out blooming water divine thunder, then they really were about to die as a couple. Could it be we are about to die like a happy couple? 14. Su Xing sighed. The water escape divine talisman was useless in the flower dragon hall, otherwise they still could flee. Gong Saiwei's gaze was fixed on the dragon. At this moment, Su Xing noticed the blooming water dragon did not seem to be about to spit out water thunder, for its mouth did not have lightning. Ho! The blooming water dragon suddenly opened its mouth, and a pink liquid sprayed out. Not good, what this animal sprayed was sex fluid. 16. Gong Kaiwei was deathly pale, even more alarmed than when she had saw the blooming water divine thunder, or it could be said she would rather that be blooming water divine thunder. SFX, schwa. Rustling, 17, the pink liquid rained down completely onto the pair's bodies without the slightest bit of concern. The blooming water dragon had also been pushed to desperation, in the end suddenly unleashing an aphrodisiac sex fluid from when it would be in heat. Right after, this ancient demon beast incapable of holding itself up anymore dangled its head with a thud. Laying on the ground, it seemed that it was so exhausted that it died. This goddamned beast. Gong Saiwei's whole body trembled, her face completely white. The pink fluid had sprayed onto her body. Immediately, an intense lust surged like a tide throughout her mind. Su Xing only felt that the blood in his body at that moment was burning, and he could not stop the impulse gathering in his lower half that seemed to want to break out of his body. If you dare to do something beastly to me, I definitely will not forgive you. Gong Kaiwei clung obstinately to her will, using a decisive gaze to stare at Su Xing, as if looking at a man with the heart of a beast. The incorruptible and refined immortal hero princess was an utter mess right now. She could barely use tracing snow to prop herself up and prevent herself from falling over. Her legs clamped tightly, her flesh already appearing to flush a bright red, and her breathing was gradually growing rapid and labored. The liquid trickled down along Gong Saiwei's thigh. Her beautiful eyes contained passion, a lustful tide rippling again and again through her body bubbled forth. Gong Kaiwei tightly clenched her teeth, but her body already no longer obeyed her will, for the ancient demon beast's aphrodisiac carried its ferocity. Even though the world's first-rate aphrodisiac pill was merely so, if these two people still had some remaining star energy, then there would have been something to be said. However, fighting a great battle with the blooming water dragon had already made each other completely spent. Resigned to their fate, their energies had already reached their minimums. She had been bitterly guarding her will for not even a few minutes, but Gong Kai-wei was almost already at her limit. No! Her white hands covered below her crotch as she at last sank down, incapable of enduring anymore. With both hands, she tore open her own long skirt, those snow-white undergarments sticking to the girl's most secret places. She panted again and again, as if complaining, as if sobbing. On the other side, Su Xing fared somewhat better than she. The training of the chaotic tail escape let his willpower gain superhuman levels of valiance. If it had only been this dragon's sex fluid by itself, that would have been fine, but upon seeing a sweet, great beauty before his eyes lying down on her side full of desire, it was as if a pitiful man had suddenly glimpsed an erotic picture of something intimate. That sort of provocation was fatal, like adding oil into the middle of a fire, making Su Xing's willpower immediately collapse. All of his reason crumbled away, and all of his lust was released. Su Xing pressed himself onto Gong Caiwei's body. Feeling the burning passion of a male's chest, as if she was grabbing onto a life-saving branch, Gong Kai-wei embraced Su Xing, their red lips sticking to one another in a fervent, unbridled kiss. The overlapping collar of Gong Caiwei's clothing was torn open. A cute, immaculately white bodice, too, was lifted up, and two towering, perfectly round mounds broke free from their restraints, bouncing out from within. Those two fresh, tender, and solid points of beauty being in the air was stunning. With one hand, Su Xing ruthlessly ravaged that plumpness, using his lips to suck away at them while his other hand grabbed her well-rounded, supple butt and kneaded it wantonly between his fingers. From time to time, he would use more strength to sample Gong Caiwei's sweet, beautiful moans. Clothes flew away as if they were snowflakes. Just as Su Xing's other hand, 3, was about to erase the girl's secret flower path, he suddenly heard the sound of sobbing resound. This sobbing that could not be heard in the midst of the girl's moans even added a different sort of flavor. The already completely burning with desire Su Xing did not care for it either, but his lips finally kissed a salty, moist liquid. Su Xing stared blankly, only seeing that the Gong Kai-wei without a thread covering her body had her whole face completely streaked with tears. As she frantically kissed, she also despairingly sobbed, "Heavenly River Mountain Cliffs, night had already fallen. The water and land assembly was already approaching its end. The Flower Dragon Cave whirlpools were currently gradually becoming weak, as this magnificent scene in both the skies and the ground was disappearing." Lin Yingmei suddenly felt flustered, as if her stomach was being pressed down upon by a large rock, leaving her somewhat unbearably fidgety. "Little sis Yingmei, relax, young master is very clever. When there really is a danger, there will be a resolution. We mustn't worry too much." Wu Xinjie comforted her. Lin Yingmei furrowed her brow. There was some sort of external matter causing her heart to be tightened to the point she could not breathe. Zhu Sha, the immortal hero princess, was never here for the blooming water divine thunder this time around, was she? Just what is she planning? Wu Xinjie's heart was somewhat bored, so she asked the towering, statuesque Zhu Sha on her other side a question. Looking at her now, she discovered the always expressionless leader's star had also exposed a rare look of anxiety. Seeing Zhu Sha did not reply, Wu Xinjie changed her question, "Then can you always tell me she has self-confidence?" Zhu Sha grunted in confirmation. Wu Xinjie twitched her lips. Suddenly, the middle of the sky issued a crimson light. The 3-star maidens lifted their heads in succession, and in the galactic chessboard above, one star emitted a crimson light, just as if another new star general had been born. This is bad. So soon and already we are almost exceeding half the number of crimson stars required. Looks like the birth outline is about to start, and it seems that we must accelerate the advancements in the young master's cultivation to make this work. The knowledge star muttered to herself, not knowing why her heart was somewhat apprehensive. Inside the flower dragon hall, Gong Caiwei's tears were just like a bowl of cold water dumped right on top of Su Xing's head. The two faced each other. That humiliation, resentment and grief in her expression was like a needle stabbing into his heart. Seeing that girl's hurt appearance, Su Xing's heart shivered. Just what was he doing? 5. As a soldier of the Republic, just what was he hoping for? Seeing Gong Caiwei like this, just what was he looking forward to? Resisting his exploding desire, Su Xing grabbed her shoulders with both his hands, kissing once more Gong Caiwei's fragrant lips. The girl's emotions immediately flared up, only this time, Su Xing was not indulging himself. He bitterly guarded his willpower so as to absolutely not humiliate the Republic's soldiers, but how could he believe that he could break free from the dragon's sex fluid? Su Xing's mind flashed by, and he immediately used the heart-like mirror's absolute sincerity soul technique. His consciousness momentarily entered an unprecedented lucid state, and quite a few refreshing streams of air flowed past his entire body's meridians. His surging impulses and desires unexpectedly had an indication of ebbing. Su Xing saw that there was hope, and then he continued to completely throw himself into the middle of the soul technique of the heart-like mirrors. Appearances are empty, empty are appearances, no appearance and no emptiness. The heart has not greed by its side. Reading the mirror's incantation silently in his mind, he began to return, and Su Xing slowly felt his own body was increasingly tranquil. A pink mist spouted from his pores as Su Xing's flushed skin also slowly returned to its normal color, and by his kiss, Su Xing's mental state was passed on to Gong Caiwei. The despairing immortal hero princess also felt a sort of peace passing through her with kisses one after the other pacifying her whole body. Her pink, tender and moist flesh began to subside. Although it was still a kiss, Gong Caiwei was no longer feeling filled with humiliation like before. Even more came from the tranquility of her own heart, and the girl's kisses became softer. The two were kissing and embracing just like this, connecting their feelings exactly like lovers. 6. A cloud of peach flower fog swirled about, and the two finally lost all their strength as well as their consciousness. An erotic dream with no traces. When Su Xing finally woke up again, Gong Caiwei was dressed tidily by his side deep in thought. Her torn long skirt had already been exchanged for a new one, and her white clothes purer than snow were quite free from vulgarity. Imagining an untainted fairy's suave and placating style, Su Xing really felt he was in a dream. Finishing inspecting his lower half, it was quite clear that that sort of out-of-date wuxia plot did not occur. Su Xing pretended to be disappointed as he sighed. Why? Gong Caiwei abruptly asked coldly. 8. Su Xing was blank. What do you mean why? Why? Gong Caiwei gritted her teeth. Seeing her expression carrying a quantum of resentment, Su Xing immediately understood in a flash. Don't think only your chastity is important. I'm still looking forward to giving my virginity to the woman I love, when both sides consent. I don't want my first time doing this sort of thing to be weeping endlessly and disappointed. I'd be impotent afterwards. Gong Caiwei subconsciously wanted to slap some sense into this man's unsealable mouth. Her hand stopped midway, watching Su Xing's not in the least concerned expression as an indescribable feeling of being touched arose from the bottom of her heart. Thank you, she whispered softly. Enough with the thanks. In the eyes of others, this was exceedingly ridiculous as Su Xing shook his head. A thoroughly cooked duck flies just like this. Anyways, under such a cliché aphrodisiac drug plotline, there was nothing good to be said about his taking advantage of the situation. Pushing down the immortal hero princess was not the sort of matter where there was an opportunity to do so whenever he wanted it. On the other hand, Su Xing did not have any feelings of pity. In the Republic, he had been trained to become the most outstanding young trump card. Between his spirit as a soldier and his desire, the scale of the former was much heavier. Thanks to Gong Caiwei, the heart-like mirror's soul technique unexpectedly breaking through the first level under this sort of situation could be considered an accidental harvest. Gong Xiwei's face was slightly red. Saving her chastity while under the dragon's aphrodisiac was just like having a dream. Right now, some parts of her expression had not returned to normal, and the expression she had as she watched Su Xing had changed into something slightly different. In her understanding, only the very honest sort of man could abandon his own desires for the sake of others. Gong Kaiwei naturally did not understand the military's iron law, serve the people. But she also felt that she really could not see through Su Xing honestly, that was impossible. On the contrary, he was quite crafty, but his willpower was also extraordinarily valiant. Apparently, one half was callous while the other was tender. Gong Kaiwei began to understand just a bit why the skillful star would follow behind him everywhere. Despite thinking that, this loathsome scoundrel still saw everything about her clear as ice and clear as jade body. 2. Feeling her whole body, originally, going with what sort of personality Gong Kaiwei had, she already planned to inevitably scatter this sinful brute's soul with terror after coitus, now, that had evolved into this unsure manner. Wanting to hate yet not being able to hate, this indeed made the immortal hero princess endlessly depressed. Su Xing definitely did not know Gong Xiwei's complex thinking, nor did he know this inadvertent hui of Liuxia behavior unexpectedly let him escape a calamity. Seeing Gong Xiwei's indecisiveness, he then said, Kaiwei, how do we handle that dragon? You can have it. Gong Kaiwei went blank after she replied. It seemed he was balancing himself for Kaiwei. Staring at Su Xing, she threw a pill at him. What Su Xing caught was an aqua blue demon pill. This is a blooming water thunder dragon pill. You only need to spend some time refining it in your body, and then you can refine a blooming water divine thunder. You don't need this? Su Xing asked. Gong Kaiwei thought it below herself to reply, even if you did refine a blooming water divine thunder, you still need the blooming water sword sex blooming water divine thunder true technique in order to refine out of it great power, otherwise, this sort of water thunder is only the ordinary sort. And why would this Gong ever go study the blooming water sword sex true technique? Su Xing was silent. He already knew that practicing the blooming water's magnificent power would not be so easy. Did you not want to learn the riding sword art? Going to the blooming water sword sect just happens to give you this chance. You only need reveal your status as a star master, and the blooming water sword sect will definitely revere you as an honored guest, which would be quite entertaining. Gong Kaiwei coldly pursed her lips. Glancing at the blooming water dragon, you take this beast as well. It just so happens to be able to refine your 2 artifacts into supreme grade artifacts. There will be no problem selling the rest of the pieces of the dragon for several million liang of gold. These items will be sufficient to satisfy young Master Su Xing. Su Xing thought it was quite worth it to be able to see the immortal hero princess appearance overflowing with thoughts of love. Seeing Gong Xiwei's terrible expression, Su Xing tactfully skirted her embarrassed aspect. Then just what did you come here to do? The empty and washed flower dragon hall did not seem to be hiding precious valuables, its sole valuable was this ancient demon beast, but right now, even that was no more. Su Xing truly could not understand what plans Gong Kaiwei had. Could it be that he had been rendered confused by his iniquity? This Gong has already found what she needed. Gong Kaiwei replied ambiguously. Seeing that she did not seem to be lying, Su Xing nodded. After nosing around the flower dragon hall like this once more to confirm, the two returned home. Atop the heavenly river's cliffs, the 3-star generals were delighted to see Gong Kaiwei break out of the water riding her sword. The two disguised themselves as capable people, and it would occur to no one that a certain spectacle happened within the flower dragon hall. 3. Zhu Sha was beside Gong Kaiwei whispering something into her ear, and the immortal hero princess faintly nodded her head. Facing Su Xing and his group, she said, this Gong still has some matters to attend to and will return first. I believe it will not be long before we next meet. When that time comes, this Gong will definitely not be lenient. Young Master Su Xing, you had best prepare. Saying so without caring for Su Xing's reaction, tracing snow became a fleeting light and disappeared far into the night sky. Seeing that riding sword flight, Su Xing was quite envious. Don't tell me I actually have to go to that whatever sword sect in order to learn the riding sword art? Who says? Wu Xinjie giggled, taking out an astral bag. A scattered star cultivator who didn't watch his step dropped by to deliver this. It just so happens that inside is a riding sword art that young master needs. Su Xing was delighted. This really came at such a time. Young master, you were fine within the Flower Dragon Hall, right? Lin Yingmei asked, her tone had a trace of concern. 5, Su Xing nodded. Looking around in the Heavenly River's vicinity, he said, let's talk on the road. On the road back to Heavenly Water City, Su Xing earnestly recounted all the events that transpired when he arrived at the Flower Dragon Cave, of course leaving out that matter with Gong Kaiwei. 6. Upon hearing the expiration of the blooming water dragon, the two girls cried out in surprise. And when confronting Gong Kaiwei's magnanimity, Lin Yingmei similarly could not understand. Wu Xinjie then smiled slightly, pointing out the cause in all this. In all likelihood, the immortal hero princess has taken the dragon's soul. 7. Dragon soul. Some high-level demon beasts have souls. It is exceptionally good material for refining talisman scripts or injecting a soul into a weapon. Xinjie also saw her tracing snow was a divine weapon. She probably wants to use the blooming water dragon's soul to inject her weapon with a soul. This is definitely less complicated than refining blooming water divine thunder. Su Xing suddenly understood, scowling, it's just a pity that the blooming water divine thunder is that blooming water sect's soul signature art. What I just got right now is useless. Since you already have the blooming water thunder dragon pill, then there's always a solution. However, at present, young master must now pay attention to another matter. The knowledge star's expression became very cautious. What matter? The Maiden Mountain's second stage of duels, the birth outline, 8, is about to begin. Su Xing stared blankly. Wu Xinjie then delicately narrated that when the Maiden Mountain star duels began, there were a total of 5 stages. The first stage was the heavenly and earthly stars, where the 108 stars rising in the sky represented the curtain raiser for the star duels. Then, the second stage was this birth outline. When the crimson stars in the sky exceeded half the total stars, then the birth outline would commence. At that time, every star master and star general would go to fight over the birth treasure outline. The birth outline was classified as a purple star grade astral treasure, 9. Legend said it recorded all of the Maiden Mountain's 108 star maidens' talents as well as failings. Whoever could obtain the birth outline would also signify that in the star duels to come, that they had obtained an area that they could occupy with active dominance. 10. That is why every time the star duels hit the second stage of birth outline, this was also an exceptionally good opportunity to scout out the strength of star masters, one after another. In the fight over the birth outline, nearly every star master and star general would unscrupulously use their abilities without holding back. Su Xing raised his head, glancing briefly to see that the sky's crimson star were already at 46. Aside from the 2 stars that fell, there were still 7 stars left in order to pass the halfway mark. This period of time did not include any more falling stars. It seems that it is imminent. 11. Su Xing frowned. The top priority is that we must advance young master's strength. Within these 2 months at the least, you must reach Nebula late stage and learn the riding sword art. Otherwise, young master would have absolutely no chance in this birth outline. The knowledge star said gravely. Lin Yingmei also nodded her head in agreement. Enter Nebula late stage in 2 months. This can't be too likely. No matter how Su Xing trained, 2 months was still too few. The resourceful star Wuyong smiled self-confidently. No, neither is it some difficult task. Young master only needs to become an outlaw, 12, and perhaps a little more than a month will suffice. Become an outlaw? Su Xing said hoarsely. 1 is a derogatory term used for men. Right arrow curving left 2. Right arrow curving left 3. Right arrow curving left 4. Welp, now she knows the true identity of Lin Yingmei, right arrow curving left 5. And the first wife knows. Right arrow curving left 6. Well, it's only a matter of time before they find out, maybe? When they do, Su Xing is so dead. Right arrow curving left 7. Right arrow curving left 8. Right arrow curving left 9. Right arrow curving left 10. Basically, it offers an overwhelming tactical advantage in intelligence gathering. Right arrow curving left 11. Right arrow curving left 12. Has a context associated with banditry. Become an outlaw? Su Xing knew the water margin was a very famous work, but it did not occur to him that Liangshan continent would also have this. Su Xing confusedly asked that this becoming an outlaw was not going and becoming a thief, right? Actually, it was completely the opposite of what Su Xing was thinking. The so-called become an outlaw was a special existence among the star masters that could be understood as the secret hideout, too, of cultivation. Star masters that cultivated in such a place as a secret hideout could have their efforts while doubling their results, otherwise, for what reason would star masters make people jealous? And was it not just because they held exceptional advantages? Not only did they have the deadly stars as fierce fighters, even their cultivation was in this way faster than a normal person's. However, this becoming an outlaw was not that easy to handle. And that would have been nonsense, for Liangshan continent never had such an inexpensive advantage. According to what Wu Xinjie said, becoming an outlaw first of all required going to the divination star platform, 3, to hear about permission to become an outlaw. The outlaw writ was also known as the token of becoming an outlaw, 5, or Liangshan outlaw certificate. 6. So long as one possessed this token, the unique gifts accompanying the Star Master could then start an unrivaled cultivation in their own secret training grounds. Regarding the currently drifting, 7, Su Xing, this was definitely very moving. It was just that the divination star platform was in the Great Liang dynasty, and furthermore, this outlaw writ was not so easy to obtain. Relying on the nebula stage was still very dangerous. Generally speaking, the majority of star masters all entered galaxy cultivation before they voluntarily became outlaws. But young master, you are different. You have this servant and Wu Yong, these 2 star generals. You have an even greater advantage than other star masters. Lin Yingmei said as such. Thinking it over, this matter was not very worrisome, and he still wanted to consider it a bit further. The main headache plaguing Su Xing currently was the blooming water divine thunder, though. The Liangshan continent 5 elements astonishing thunder just in his hand was actually useless, making things somewhat gloomy. Returning to Ensuan's residence in Heavenly Water City, the efficacious star spotted the 3, her face carrying a great, big smile. Just the young master and you 2 returning safely is good enough. Su Xing brought out a few medical ingredients. Handing them over to Ensuan, I've truly troubled you here. Please accept these. Ensuan shook her head in refusal. Suan often receives Sister Xinjie's consideration. Sister's young master, how could Suan receive this? Ensuan, you should just take them. Only you, the divine physician, can refine these items, anyways. Wu Xinjie immediately encouraged her. Ensuan hesitated for a moment, her face slightly red, then sweetly accepted the materials. Then Suan shall be rude. These medical ingredients included ones called bitter water ginseng, 8, one called frost leaf, 9, for she just happened to lack these 2 materials. Returning to his bedroom, Su Xing had just toiled for a day. Lying atop the bed, he snored as he fell into a deep sleep. Lin Yingmei and Wu Xinjie stood at the bedside, observing their young master's sleeping form. The knowledge star crouched, giggling, young master truly does not have any caution. That sleeping posture makes Xinjie love it so. Lin Yingmei furrowed her brow. Over the past few days, Wu Xinjie already on more than one occasion wanted to lay in the same bed as Su Xing. 10. The knowledge star was honestly a bit presumptuous. The young master is currently at the early stage. Wu Yong, if you mess around, this servant definitely will not forgive you. Pardon me, little sis Yingmei, but what does this mess around refer to? Wu Xinjie gave a lascivious glance. Lin Yingmei groaned. However, Xinjie noticed the young master and that immortal hero princess were somewhat different in some places. Wu Xinjie said. Lin Yingmei exposed her bewilderment. Ha, thinking of deceiving the knowledge stars, is definitely not that simple. That immortal hero princess both loves and hates our young master. 11, really? Lin Yingmei revealed her disbelief. I'm afraid that when they were slaying the dragon, something interesting happened. Wu Xinjie stifled a smile. She fixed her gaze onto Su Xing's face, her charming eyes like silk. Using her white fingers to gently caress him, she said to herself, and what would that something be? Young master. Lin Yingmei definitely did not have the knowledge star's passion for gossip. At night, she not only took charge of the young master's safety, she also guarded against this female wolf. The magnificent knowledge star unexpectedly always thought of seducing the young master, actually depressing the panther head greatly. Today, the young master made a narrow escape. 12. Wu Yong, your tomfoolery does not bewilder this servant. Lin Yingmei said stubbornly. I know that. I, the resourceful star, am definitely not a fool. Wu Xinjie twitched her mouth. Lin Yingmei lay down in her clothes on Su Xing's right side, and Wu Xinjie at this moment also lay on his left. Originally, the star maidens could enter the star nest to cultivate, for it held many benefits towards increasing star energy. However, Lin Yingmei needed to protect Su Xing's safety, and Wu Xinjie held no interest towards star energy. At night, they just slept on either side of him, and over many days, these three already grew accustomed to it. 13. However, only when Lin Yingmei laid down did she discover the situation was slightly unsuitable. Because this was the first sleep he had upon a bed, Su Xing had already stripped off all his outerwear, leaving on only a pair of shorts. Right now, because he was too exhausted, he slept like a dead pig, basically unable to sense the two beauties at his side attending to him. She had not felt this way before when he was wearing clothes, but this time, she shot glances at her own young master's fine torso. A male's masculine scent entered her nose, making Lin Yingmei's heart restless, unexpectedly leaving her slightly at a loss of what to do. From time to time, Lin Yingmei heard the sound of clothes. Taking a look, Wu Xinjie unexpectedly also threw off that garment she wore, exposing the tube top, 14, underneath, sensually revealing her snow-white limbs. Wu Yong, just what are you doing? Lin Yingmei was stunned. Of course you need to undress when you sleep on the bed, Xinjie knows what you're worried about. Nothing will happen with the young master sleeping so deeply. Wait until after we have a secret hideout before we discuss this further. Xinjie has very much appropriate behavior, anyways, he. Saying that, Wu Xinjie let out a comfortable voice. Fearing that a loud noise would disturb the young master's rest, Lin Yingmei could only let her get away with it. Lin Yingmei closed her eyes to rest, her divine intent not yet relaxed in the slightest, when suddenly, Su Xing turned over, half embracing Lin Yingmei in his arms. The girl's body went rigid, looking at the young master in shock. Su Xing was still sleeping soundly, his mouth speaking odd sleep talk. Kai Wei, your figure is indeed very good. Sure enough, it was the same as what Wu Xinjie said. Something happened to the young master and that immortal hero princess inside the flower dragon cave, and just as Lin Yingmei thought that, she suddenly felt her chest being attacked. It was like the girl suffered an electric shock, almost wanting to just grab this hand and throw it out. Seeing the dreaming Su Xing's subconscious actions, she endured temporarily, but then, Lin Yingmei used both hands to grab Su Xing's hand, wanting him to release her. Only heaven knew what grand, shameless beyond belief dream her own young master was having, going so far as to embrace her sideways from behind. His wide chest pressed up against Lin Yingmei's back, giving her a very relaxed kind of peace of mind, but almost immediately, this sort of feeling was shattered by those perverted hands covering her breasts. Her face reddened to the point that it was about to drip water. Wu Xinjie kept her eyes open a tiny crack. Smiling craftily, she used her hands to grab onto Su Xing's and suddenly began to use them to knead what was in them. Ah, came the sound of a shallow groan. Young master, cease this at once. Lin Yingmei gasped for breath. Her body had gone soft, and her own pure and holy place momentarily allowed itself to be grasped. It was at that time that Lin Yingmei heard a slight panting, and she immediately realized the resourceful star's evil scheme. Her mind cleared itself in but a moment, and resentfully turning over and getting out of the bed, Wu Yong. It seems little sister also really hopes the young master will make her moist. Wu Xinjie opened her eyes. With a cold sound, the Arctic star's spear flashed a chilling light. Wu Xinjie stuck out her sweet tongue. Little sister, calm yourself. Her body transformed and secretly entered the star nest, and Wu Xinjie's sudden entrance into his mind made Su Xing's head hurt. Opening his eyes with a groan, he saw Lin Yingmei standing resentfully in front of him, Arctic spear in hand, the front piece of her jacket half open, revealing half of a sensual sight. There was a gnat just now. Lin Yingmei covered her chest with her hand and stored her weapon. Su Xing went, oh, and asked, you want to sleep on the bed? 16. Lin Yingmei's face immediately blushed a deep red, and with righteous and proper words, no, may young master have proper rest. Su Xing did not have any sort of energy, only feeling that Lin Yingmei's bashful appearance was really interesting. Smiling, he then laid back down to sleep, and surprisingly turned over his body, leaving Lin Yingmei a wide space. Lin Yingmei went blank for a moment before she slowly shifted over. And Suan's hands held a copy of The Testament of the Zhu, as she passed through the corridor, stopping when she arrived at the courtyard behind the house. Two people were swiftly flitting about within the middle of the courtyard. One red and one green that absolutely dazzled the eyes. The sparks that were evoked resounded throughout the surroundings. Young master, don't lose. Knowledge star Wu Xinjie sat to the side, watching the good show in front of her, filled with interest. Sister Xinjie, what is happening with them? And Suan asked curiously. The two people battled in the middle of the courtyard with an exceptional intensity and shaking to the core. Uninformed people might have believed it to be a big fight. Oh, the majestic star is very energetic today. 2. Wu Xinjie covered her mouth, with a sort of victorious, evil grin. It must be that too much of her strength from last night remained. She even winked when she finished speaking, you get it, right, sort of expression. And Suan was used to the knowledge star's flirtatious conduct, smiling serenely. Young master Su Xing appears to have much talent, fighting sister Yingmei without even being outdone. The one who carved the majestic star's mark down is rather ordinary. Wu Xinjie felt this was a matter of course. She looked at the book in Suan's hands. That's right, Suan, do you have any works pertaining to the continent's pills and such? Xinjie is also not too clear on these, and always every time obtaining a pill and troubling you for the great many things that the young master does not understand is also not very good. And Suan nodded. This happened to be the efficacious stars, the divine physicians, expertise. However, if little sis Suan could also sign a contract with the young master, then that would be great. This way would also not cause that much trouble. Wu Xinjie's expression was ambiguous. The knowledge star did not care one bit if her sisters increased more and more. And Suan lightly smiled without a reply. Wu Xinjie also knew that this was impossible. Since the start of the star duels in ancient times, no one had ever heard of a star master that could contract with 3 star generals. Contracting with 2 was already something that needed profuse thanks. At this moment, the courtyard's intensifying battle had already reached its climactic stage. The two girls could not help but be surprised. Lin Yingmei's Arctic star spear cut through the blue sky, an ice-cold chill immediately shrouded the 4 directions. The young girl heaved a great shout, imposing and ferocious, countless ice shards dancing freely in the breeze. Su Xing used silver blade to block, secretly speechless. Lin Yingmei's attack unexpectedly approached with this sharpness, different from the spars they had until now. The majestic star's attack could be said to seemingly sweep through all obstacles, one maneuver after another, continuous and uninterrupted. Fortunately, Lin Yingmei did not use too much power upon her star weapon, otherwise Su Xing would basically have had no way of resisting under the majestic star's fierce and urgent assault. This was also fine. Su Xing was actually worried Lin Yingmei previously had misgivings attacking him. As far as he was concerned, arousing latent potential within the most desperate situations was something he was already incomparably familiar with. A whistling noise directly sounded. "Young master, receive this." Lin Yingmei's spear suddenly thrusted, a point of cold light drawing out a winding thread. The Arctic Star Spear's spear point was just like flowing stars and moonlight, its sudden thrust completely brimming with a stifled sense of beauty. Su Xing took advantage of a pivot to wave his blade. The first place he connected with was Lin Yingmei's pair of eyes that chilled to the bone. Her black pupils already were no longer cold as winter, rather, they had a deeply penetrating tranquility, every moment forcing a formless, whistling point to sweep this way. The spear and silver blade crossed each other in midair again and again. Lin Yingmei exerted her strength to continue her stab from before. Su Xing avoided contacting her from in front with a beautiful sidestep. The sound of metal clashing against each other. Su Xing suddenly dodged and formed hand seals at the same time. A blue flying sword unsheathed and flew out, on one hand using silver blade to draw in Lin Yingmei and the other to devote some of his concentration to controlling the flying sword. This vacillating manner made Suan endlessly shocked. Su Xing's silver blade already attacked, and the flying sword was also like lightning, shooting towards its opponent. It suddenly changed directions while en route to attack, but this ingenious attack was incapable of obstructing Lin Yingmei's pace. The majestic star panther head was just like a chilly snow carved into a quick attack moving back and forth. Even if she was occasionally forced into dead end by an attack from both sides, that snow-piercing, cold spear's rapid and accurate attack was sufficient to help her out of trouble. It was just that in the blink of an eye, that heroic and beautiful figure arrived before Su Xing. The edge of the spear wrapped in austerity chopped downwards suddenly, carrying a pale light to Su Xing's eyes. Su Xing dodged to the side this strike, and that expansive spear light abruptly changed direction right upon the floor, its vertical chop turning into a horizontal sweep, easily fending off the flying sword's attack. Su Xing took this chance to rouse two weapons, dispersing an expansive, white, cold light spilling towards Lin Yingmei. It was similar to a hurricane overcoming all obstacles, shrouding her tightly within the glints and flashes of steel. However, regardless of how tricky Su Xing's attack angle was, how frequently it alternated speeds, his attack was still as before, incapable of injuring Lin Yingmei in the slightest. That handle of the spear suffused with a cold-colored light danced under Lin Yingmei's control, like an airtight iron wall, sweeping open every single attack he waved out. Su Xing was that helpless after ending their spar. Su Xing's brow was beaded with sweat, praising, "Pretty good. Today's attacks were truly fierce." "You scared me a bit, ha, ha." Lin Yingmei walked over, putting away her spear, slightly apologetic. "Sorry, your servant was reckless." "It's nothing, I like it when you're like this." Su Xing shook his head. Lin Yingmei grunted in appreciation. The two people turned back. Seeing Suan, Su Xing abruptly recalled something and said, "Suan, there's something I want to consult with you about." "Young master, please speak." Suan said. "Can you refine thunder water flowers?" He had obtained more than 20 thunder water flowers and a thunder water flower snake crown from that flower dragon cave. Su Xing did not know at all what they were used for, recalling that since the blooming water divine thunder was not so easy to refine, it would be better to first refine a few simple divine thunders for himself as practice. Suan is capable with pills, medical arts and such. On the contrary, I've never refined this thunder water flower before. Suan muttered irresolutely to herself, "Young master, this is in preparation to refine a blooming water divine thunder?" Su Xing nodded. "Young master, don't you have a blooming water thunder dragon pill? This indeed genuine blooming water divine thunder is far better than the thunder water flower." Wu Xinjie was opposed. It would be better to someday take these thunder water flowers and make them into divine thunder talismans. Xinjie believes this is even more appropriate, somewhat. Ah. The young master obtained a blooming water thunder dragon pill. And Suwen's jaw hung slightly agape in astonishment. It was only luck. Su Xing said. 3. And Suwen smiled. What Sister Xinjie said was not wrong. Since the young master has the blooming water thunder dragon pill, then there is no need to refine divine thunder. It's not that, I want to first use these divine thunders to practice. Su Xing explained helplessly. The remarkable ability of the blooming water divine thunder technique required the full use of the blooming water sword sect's true technique, but Su Xing did not have any interest in joining the blooming water sword sect at all. Having him go bow his head for the sake of a sect, he did not have even the slightest bit of interest. Additionally, what Su Xing considered even more was in case he became a member of this sect, he would inevitably be put under the leash of the sect's capable people. How could he have his current complete freedom and relaxation? Moreover, he already inquired as to the whereabouts of the outlaw writ, and Su Xing was preparing himself to establish a secret base. Recalling this blooming water divine thunder technique was originally also created by some almighty being, Su Xing wanted to use this as a pretext to try. And Suwen suddenly understood and smiled. So the young master was originally fretting about this. Suwen has a proposition and does not know if the young master would like to hear it. Don't hesitate to speak. Su Xing nodded. The divine physician and Suwen was fairly earnest in her opinion, so it should be not bad. Has the young master thought about stealing it? And Suwen's turned, and she had a crafty, light smile. Su Xing furrowed his brow. The two girls at his side also had their thoughts jump. That won't work. This sort of great sect not only has supervoid cultivators as overseers, the sect protection array only lets people in, but not out. Wu Xinjie rejected without the slightest hesitation. Lin Yingmei nodded. If going and stealing under the current circumstances the four great sword sect's guarded secret was not too risky, then it was still too crazy. Suwen, did you think up of something? Su Xing said, suspicious. And Suwen smiled. If it was the best thief under heaven, this would not necessarily be a difficult problem. The best thief under heaven, Su Xing's head was unclear. Wu Xinjie suddenly shouted, Suwen, could you be referring to her? Exactly her. And Suwen nodded. 1. Right arrow curving left 2. And I wonder who could have done that, right arrow curving left 3. Oh, yes. Some luck and a lot of feeling someone up. Speaking of the best thief under heaven, there was only one person that could assume this name in Su Xing's memory, even if it was among the stars, even they carried a thief title. Correct. It was the thief star, flea on a drum, Qian. The thief star is the one that most unpredictably appears and disappears among the 108 star generals. Finding her traces definitely is not easy. Wu Xinjie shook her head, feeling that Suwen's idea was a bit lofty into the sky in meaning. The knowledge star had her doubts. Could it be that little sister, you? And Suwen smiled and nodded. Speaking of this is also a coincidence. This little sister just happens to have had some dealings with Qian. Not long ago, she asked for some injury medication from Suwen. Little sister asked her a sentence. She said she would report to little sister if she broke through a mechanism. It has been more than a month now, and little sister has not seen Qian. Suwen thinks Qian definitely has run into trouble. The thief star really can be found? Su Xing asked, astonished. Actually, Su Xing's suspicions were rather normal. Liangshan continent was vast, and simply put, the rippling wave kingdoms west had the Cash Mountain overlooking the Thousand Mounts Kingdom and the Han Martial Kingdom, too, while the east's White Deer Highlands bordered the Great Liang dynasty. The south had the Heavenly River and Heavenly Mountain, and just this area had several millions of li. In addition, this was but only a small portion of the Azure Dragon territory. According to what he knew, The Rock Plume Immortal Mountains, 3, just bordering the Vermilion Bird territory, basically just did not have a true end that cultivators could arrive at. It was in such a large place that they could run into the fleeting thief star, and Su Xing felt that this was too hard to believe. Actually, this was not so. The star maidens were the 108 stars, all descended. Their natures had a sort of exceedingly attractive force. This attraction was just like that sort of instinct that drew a moth to a flame. They could not help but approach the other star generals, similar to how the skies and the 108 stars approached one another. And Suan took herself to be the 108 star maiden's sole divine physician. Her medical arts were superb, her disposition kind, and she had not even signed a contract. Her relations with the normal star generals were also surprisingly reasonable. Lin Yingmei asked, "Then where is she?" Grindstone Mountain. Grindstone Mountain was located at the Great Liang Dynasty's Thistle Prefecture, 5, sharing a border with the Rippling Wave Kingdom in a remote area. Its topography was similar to a whetstone, and thus, the mountain received its name. It had not any quirks unto itself, and it was far from comparison with the likes of the Bright Sun Ridge, 6, and the 5 Platforms Mountains, 7, which were unmistakable within their own 2 countries. In the forest of luxuriant foliage, suddenly, the beautiful figure of a woman rushed out. Raising her head up to the thick foliage covering the sky, the beautiful figure ran straight ahead, and from behind her came a shaking sound. Rustling briefly, something resembling a tiger or a lion, a fierce beast with its entire body made from iron, pounced out. This fine iron fierce beast's 8 sharp claws and fangs unceasingly tore at that figure. The beauty stepped onto a slab of rock with a leap, turning her body very quickly, raising her white hands, and then 2 flying claws mutually crisscrossed, biting into the fine iron fierce beast's forelimb. The girl firmly pulled and restrained it, her body beautiful as a swallow. She leapt and fluttered about within the forest, and along with her fierce shout, that fine iron fierce beast was suddenly hoisted into the air by her bare hands without any aid. With a leap that covered several tens of meters, and the release of those claws, that fierce beast fell downwards with a rumbling as it smashed against a sharp rock, releasing the crashing sound of shattering. This young lady is truly tired to death. The girl wiped her sweat, approaching that fierce beast. And it was at this time that the dying fine iron fierce beast violently launched its counterattack, freezing the girl in place. A cold light suddenly shot towards the fine iron fierce beast, and a graceful figure landed upon the fierce beast's back. Clenching a long spear in both hands, she directly ran through the monster right where it was. SFX, rumble. The steel beast then lost the breath of life. The girl stared dumbly at the person's silhouette that was like a goddess descended. Coming proud, tall and straight, her heroic spirit was matchless. This much carelessness is definitely not like your style, Qian. 9, a gentle voice called out. The girl turned her head, and from within the forest walked out a man and 2 women. In a split second, the girl who helped her kill the monster recalled her spear, and with an easy movement, she then returned to that man's side. Suan. The girl was surprised. This single man and 3 women happened to be Su Xing and the rest. The girl gazed at the approaching people, her countenance carrying distrust as she watched in Suan. Young master, this is the best thief under heaven that Suan spoke of. And Suan made the introductions. Su Xing was also inquisitively sizing up the thief star. An oval-shaped face, slender phoenix eyes, cherry-red lips, and a pleasant manner, she wore a skin-tight, black short-sleeved shirt, and tied around her spotlessly white neck was a flashy black scarf. The real treat for Su Xing's eyes was the girl's slender pair of legs unexpectedly wrapped in black fishnet stockings. The sex appeal was indeed incomparable. Just what is going on? Suan, could it be that you've betrayed us? Did you bring your master here to kill me? The thief star Qian's entire body raised its guard, her destined star weapon, the hoodwinking flying claws, began to stir. Don't misunderstand. And Suan walked over to her to explain. On the other side, Wu Xinjie said with a strangely gentle voice, what is the thief star hiding here doing? Su Xing and his group curiously looked at the fine iron fierce beast that was only just chasing Qian for the kill. It did not seem to be an ordinary demon beast, for its entire body had joints that were obviously manufactured. 10. Its exterior was a layer of steel, making Su Xing recall the mechanical monsters from movies. A mechanical beast. 11. Wu Xinjie stared blankly. Mechanical beasts were one type of strange animal in Liangshan continent originating from the Vermilion Bird Territory's foreign divine machine clan that used every sort of steel and fine stone to manufacture demon beasts. The core power was a demon beast's soul. This sort of mechanical beast was very popular in Liangshan continent because their operation did not require complex procedures, it required only a simple setup with divine intent to combine with the mechanisms to suffice. These acted as a sort of vital strategic weapon for several imperial families and officials. The first appearance of mechanical beasts still needed to be traced back to the Vermilion Bird Territories, 100 Deviances War, 12, it launched against the Azure Dragon Territory. At that time, the mechanical beasts could be said to have astonished every single Azure Dragon cultivator, putting themselves firmly into the limelight. However, because of this sort of strange animal, the Divine Machine clan suffered extinction, its remaining clansmen escaping every which way. Although every sort of mechanical sect was established, their publicity was already no longer what it once was. Strange, why would a mechanical beast appear on this mountain? This was discovered by this young lady, and don't you all think of snatching it away? Qian leapt onto that lion mechanical beast with a few steps. Seeing a pile of broken white crystals, she sorrowfully wailed incessantly, incapable of looking at Lin Yingmei. How could you damage its soul? This young lady was prepared to take and use it. Lin Yingmei coldly said, this servant wanted to ensure its death. The cores of mechanical beasts that conceal the soul are all to be strictly protected. You unexpectedly penetrated it with a single spear. Just which star are you? Qian made a powerless accusation. Qian, since you are the thief star, Xinjie does not know if you could help our young master go steal the blooming water divine thunder true technique, after which we definitely will give you a significant remuneration. Wu Xinjie said. The thief star looked at Suan. Pointing at Su Xing, she said, Suan, can you really trust him? He is but indeed a star master. Suan showed a relaxed smile. The thief star was helpless. Eccentrically sizing up Su Xing, her eyeballs suddenly rolled. Did you really contract the knowledge star? Is there a problem? Su Xing asked. The thief star giggled, shaking her head, no problem, definitely no problem. Having this young lady help you steal whatever true technique is possible, however, you must also do something for this young lady. This is very fair. Su Xing nodded. This young lady likes your straightforwardness. The thief star flea on a drum patted Su Xing's stomach, saying carefreely, as long as you help me enter the Mo clan ruins to obtain the Mo attack treasure box, 13, this young lady will agree to help with your matter. Mo clan ruins? 14, Wu Xinjie exposed her astonishment. 1, right arrow curving left 2. Right arrow curving left 3. Right arrow curving left 4. Right arrow curving left 5. Right arrow curving left 6. Right arrow curving left 7. Right arrow curving left 8. Right arrow curving left 9. Right arrow curving left 10. A robot, really? Right arrow curving left 11. Right arrow curving left 12. Right arrow curving left 13. Right arrow curving left 14. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.